Hello, everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem, go after the things that you want in life. And what I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, this time talk about it with other people. And here you are, we're doing it. And I'm so excited to talk about this episode. It's going to be season 3, episode 7. Before I get into it, a few housekeeping items that I needed to share. Of course, first of all, the most recent interview that I did was with Alexa Palladino, who played Sarah Wheeler on the show. What an interesting conversation that was with her. And she was the first person, the only person so far, who actually dug back through her old emails and went to find if the casting breakdown was still there, which it was, and she read it. So it was really fun to see not only her thoughts, but to get a sense of how fleshed out that character was before she even took on the role, which amazed me, to be honest with you. So that's a really fun interview to go and check out. Now, the other thing I should point out is that it's actually, even though I've maintained the same schedule, if you've been watching these as I post them live, I actually had a few weeks off. So I pre-recorded all the last several maybe 5 different episode recaps up until this point because I was going to be on a vacation. So you might have missed some of your comments getting added into the feedback section as we went along, but I'm back on the same recording schedule that I used to be on. I'm caught up. In case you want to know where I was, I had a wonderful trip to Portugal and Spain, and I'll link a video here for that in case you want to check out how that went, because that was a blast. It was a little Take the Doughnut challenge for myself, in addition to this being one. So lots of things have been happening for me. I'm a little rusty getting back into these recaps, but I feel like this was a really interesting one to jump back into because it's so intense. And I'm here to tell you, if you're brand new to the show, I wish I could experience the rest of season 3 for the first time like you're about to, because it just does not let up from here. I mean, name an episode that's not going to be good in the rest of the season or the rest of the series, really. I just, you're in for such a ride. I can't wait to hear what you think about this show. And for those of you who have, been fans of the show for a long time and you're rewatching it with me, this is going to be really fun to deep dive these last episodes that are coming up here, especially in the rest of season 3. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about season 3, episode 7. This one was called The Threshold, which I feel like both refers to the crossing of the threshold when Cam and Tom walk in, and Joe walking kind of back over Ryan's threshold on the way out. It's been mentioned before that sort of there's often symmetry between the beginning and the end of an episode, or a reference is pulled up again at the beginning and the end of an episode. And I definitely got that here. So, okay, this one's called The Threshold. It originally aired September 27th, 2016. This one was directed by Karen Kusama and written by Michael Saltzman. The description is, after his recent revelation, Joe is confronted by Gordon regarding the future of his company. During her wedding celebration, the building tension between Cameron and Donna ignites in a fierce ultimatum, fracturing the very heart of mutiny. There's so much to say about this one. Let's just get into the scene-by-scene breakdown of it all. So we're going to start with Cam in her new house. Of course, this is the house that we saw before it was sold when Cam and Donna visited it with the realtor. From this viewpoint, it becomes a little clearer that it's the same house. You can see that window we saw before. And so Cam is in this house now, but there's hardly anything else in it with her. She's got a table with the ham radio set up in the living room. And she's currently putting a plant. She's deciding where to put a plant. She's got fern. She wants to know where to place this thing. She tries the mantle. She puts it there. She stands back. That's not it. She picks it back up again. She's gonna put it over in the corner on the floor because there's nothing to put it on. That'll have to do for now because there's gonna be a knock on the door. Cam looks very hopeful, and she goes to the door, and Tom is there. Tom is smiling. I'm so happy to see Tom back. I love this character. I love Mark O'Brien. Gosh, how do I feel about their relationship? I don't know. There's some red flags for me in this episode, but I am very happy to see Tom back so that we can discuss what's happening with Cam and his relationship, what's happening with him. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone bringing this character back onto the show. Something that's worth noting is that in Mark O'Brien's interview, he mentioned that at the end of season 2, way back when, originally it was written for Tom to get on the plane to go to California and with the rest of the team at the same time. And somewhere along the way, it was decided not to do that. And then, we're getting what we're getting now. And I think even if you're watching this for the first time, I think even what we've been able to talk about to this point in season 3, it's so much more interesting that he did not get on the plane. I mean, if you're Mark O'Brien, maybe you wanted to be in those episodes, but I also think it's very, like, there's a lot to talk about with Cam keeping the relationship quiet, with how they got back together. I think all of that is really rich with stuff to talk about. So I'm quite glad that they went the direction that they went with it. As a podcaster, it's way more fun to look at like what happens when Cam tries to get him back. And this episode is going to give us a lot to talk about in that way. So, all right, so we're going to see we're going to see Tom. She goes out to hug him. She like sort of crosses her own threshold. She goes out, she hugs him, they kiss, he twirls her. She says, "Hi, welcome to California." He says, "Friendly state." They kiss again. He's going to give a little sigh. He says, "Hey, we're married." She nods and she starts to walk him inside. He says, no, I want to do this right, okay? So he goes to sort of bend down and pick her up so he can carry her over the threshold. She's like, no, you've got to be kidding me. He says, yes. She says, "Don't put me down." He starts to pick her up. He says, "I'm trying to be romantic, okay?" He lifts her. She says, "Just for the record, this is my house. You're unemployed, and this is an absurd sexist tradition." He walks her about 2 feet, and he puts her down. He's like, "Ouch." She says, "What? I was just kidding about the employed thing." He puts her down. He says, I know, I think I pulled something." She says, "Can we just cross the threshold together like not crazy people?" They agree. And they're going to take one big step over it together, side by side. And he says, "That was easier." Says, "Mm-hmm." So he says, "Good call, Mrs. Rendon," knowing full well that's not a thing. And she says, "You're welcome, Mr. Howe." And they just sort of, it's a fun little game they're playing. They just sort of smile and stare each other down and nod at each other. Of course, they're going to have this particular battle. So much stuff we're getting from this. First of all, Tom's kind of traditional. That's something we're finding here. And that's one of the ways that they're not quite the same. Cam is certainly not traditional, but he kind of likes the idea as much as, she met him for the first time last season because he was sort of getting her attention. He was getting Mutiny's attention through stealing and poaching and doing bad things to Mutiny. Stuff that, they had absolutely left room for him to do. And there is that about him, but kind of once he's in, he wants to protect what he has. And he's a fairly traditional guy. And so he knows she's not going to want to do these things, but he's got to try. But this whole thing that we get this entire episode with there's another scene later where they'll do it again with the whole name convention thing. You know, it's cute as a game and they know they're playing a game, but I think there's something kind of serious underneath it. And I think he probably a little bit wishes she would want to be Mrs. Rendon. He knows she probably won't be, but I don't know. I feel like there's a little something underneath this. And the other thing about actually carrying her over the threshold is she's been in that house for some amount of time already. You know, she like initiated whatever the paperwork was. She set up the ham radio. She's, I guess, been sleeping here. She's got the fern. She came out of the house to walk him into it. So it's a nice gesture to walk her over the threshold, but it's a little late. So there's that. But I think also this idea that she's still, even in her jokes, she's like, I bought the house. You're not employed. It's cute, but it's not cute. She knows she's kidding, but again, I think there's something real underneath that. And Tom, to be in this relationship, if he has pride about this, he has to swallow it every time he talks to her. I mean, this is their like nuptial bliss, you know, and she's saying stuff like this. I don't know, like this first encounter back with Tom in California is concerning for me. Like I just I don't know if the stuff she's giving him is what he really wants. But they're married. He came to California. He must think there's something here for him. So I don't know, but I'm curious, especially if you're watching this first time out, what's your impression when you see Tom and Cam back together here? Where do you think this is headed? What do you think is coming of this relationship? Where do you think they're going from here? Okay, Ryan. Ryan is typing into his computer. He's going into the administrative side of NSFNet. He types in the username NSFNet administrator. He logs in with the password. He's going to get a blank screen with the blinking cursor. He smiles. The phone rings. He picks it up and it's Joe. Joe's like, it's me. Ryan says, hey, Joe, I got the login set up. It just leads to a blank directory, but our network is officially live. He's smiling. He hasn't heard the news from the last episode yet, but Joe's about to tell him. So we're going to see Joe in his apartment now. We can see the bar in the back. It's a dark room. He's walking around in a dark room. He says, Ryan, I'm out. Ryan says, wait, out? Out of what? He's confused. He doesn't know what happened at the end of the last episode. Joe says, Macmillan Utility, which means NSFNet is paused. Ryan is very confused now. He's like, how is that even possible? They have done so much work. He has done so much work. He had no idea this was coming. Joe says, I'll explain later. What I need is for you to go in tomorrow like nothing happened because you're going to be fired. And so we're still hearing the conversation. There's sort of a post lap of the conversation as we see Ryan going into work the next day. And we're still hearing Joe's voice. The less you know, the better. And if anyone asks, we never talked. We're going to see Ryan the next day walking around the corner of Macmillan Utility going towards Joe's office. And he watches as movers are taking furniture out of the room. And then Ken walks out of it too. Ken, and then there's a lawyer or another man behind him, but probably the lawyer, says, Mr. Ray, let's chat. Ken seems to be getting a certain amount of bliss from this. It makes me wonder if the scenes we get from him in this episode and the fact that they had a Joe McMillan clause in their contract make me wonder if Ken always thought that Joe was going to make a mistake and he was waiting for the moment, not realizing that that would also be coupled with, oh, Joe doesn't really, the intellectual property was never even Joe's. It was Gordon's. Ken could not have predicted that move, but I think he maybe did predict the fact that Joe was going to do something destructive and Ken was going to capitalize on it. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm leaning right and now with Ken, especially with what we see in this episode. He tried to make it work the best he could, and Joe was going to Joe, and he knew it. I think there's a lot of room for interpretation with Ken, though, to be very honest with you. So that's where I'm leaning at the moment. Okay, so we're then going to go to Gordon, because what's the fallout of the fact that at the end of the last episode, Joe said, everything, all of this was Gordon's, everything I own is his. So we're going to see that Gordon makes a phone call while he is opening the case of a videotape. There's a note on the front of the case that says, call when you watch this, Bruce. Gordon's going to call Bruce here. He says, hey, Bruce, it's Gordon. What is this, bootleg Top Gun? He takes the tape out. Bruce's voice says, better just watch. I want to hear you watch it. So Bruce probably being Gordon's lawyer. Gordon puts the tape in the VCR. He plays it. And he hears the deposition. And then we're going to see Joe on that nice new big screen that he's got. And we see Joe saying, founding CEO of Macmillan. Gordon's like, oh, geez. These things are bad enough when I'm there. He grabs the remote. He says, what am I watching this for? Bruce says, I don't want to spoil it. Watch. Then Joe's deposition continues. We see him say no, never. And then there's static. And we're going to see a cut. And then we're now going to see Joe very intensely looking directly into the camera. And the lawyer says, what? Another lawyer says, turn it off. And we're going to switch between the straight on shots of Joe on the deposition and Gordon as he's watching it. Joe says, don't. We look straight at Gordon. He's very attentive. Joe says, I, Joe Macmillan, stole the code to the security software from Gordon Clark. And we go back to Gordon. Gordon sits up. This is what he's watching this for. We see Joe again. Everything this company is built on is his. We see Gordon again. Holy shit. Bruce says, that's what I wanted to hear. I talked to the partners and we think this is worth at least 25 mil. Gordon's processing all that. And he's like, you hear me, Gordon? Gordon smiles a little bit in relief, I think. And he says, yeah. And then we're going to hear the sound of Donna coming down the stairs. And Gordon very quickly, he doesn't sort of bring her into the fold with that. He keeps it quiet. He keeps it a secret from her. He turns off the tape. He hangs up with Bruce really quick before she comes downstairs and joins him in the room. And Donna comes down. She's checking her earrings. She says, Gordon, we're going to be late. Is everything okay? He smiles. He says, yeah, everything's great. So I think they're about to go to work together. So some things here. I mean, he's keeping, he doesn't tell her about this for this whole episode. They've had secrets from each other before. This is good news. He doesn't really know what this is exactly. He doesn't know the implications of this. He doesn't know how he feels about this. Maybe he doesn't want to complicate that by bringing it to Donna. Maybe he wants to know how he feels about it before he brings it to Donna. I'm not really sure. But he's choosing to keep this a secret. And I just don't love this for their relationship. I think they've had some big secrets from each other before and it's too much. Why the instinct not to tell her about this and to hide it? Like to specifically hang up a phone with Bruce and shut off the tape as quick as possible. I see what happens for them in this episode and I'm like, oh man, they are really not communicating with each other in this episode. And we've seen how we've gotten to this point, and I believe every bit of it. One of the things that I really like about the choice to have these sort of straight on shots alternating between Joe looking at the camera, like sort of straight down the barrel of the camera, and then Gordon looking straight at him, is that it almost feels like they're having a direct conversation with each other because of the way that we're seeing this. I feel like it's sort of a response to each other. So, but it's not yet. Not until Gordon actually shows up. So at his doorstep, which we will see soon. Okay, so let's go over to Cam. Cam's on the computer listening to her headphones. She's on Swap Meet. We're gonna get a little walkthrough of what Swap Meet's looking like right now. She's got her avatar there. Her avatar has the antenna upgrade, if you will. Some things I stopped the screen here because I wanted to see what was actually on it, because we see that first visual of her sort of walking into the neighborhood view of it, where we can see the Swap Meet, the store behind her. So then we're going to see a screen with just words on it. It's in sections. So the first section says top swaps. They range from $1 to $380. So that's the going rate for the items in the top swaps right now. There's going to see a range of items in a for sale section. We're going to see a wall of shame. And something I wanted to point out here, that number 1 on this list is somebody named Lulu. I mean, we don't like Lulu very much from season 1 either, right? So how about that being on the wall of shame? There are 18 people in this neighborhood at this present time. And then under featured items, I wanted to pull those up for a second here, because it says Pez dispensers for $2.50, sports memorabilia for $5, which is a fairly general thing to say. Jane Fonda workout tape, $6.20. But which one? I remember those. My mom used to do those in the basement. I used to watch her. He-Man figure for $15. I mean, what a blast from the past this list is. Well curated, I would say. Okay, now we're going to see the actual neighborhood view again with the avatars. So we're going to see Cam there. We're going to see a guy with no head, with the blood spurting out the neck hole like Gordon had asked for. Then we're going to see another guy who looks a little like Craig, if I'm being honest. And then we're going to see on the screen somebody say, "Hey, what's up?" And she types, she might have typed that, I'm not sure. And then she writes, "Sorry, not interested in buying anything." And somebody writes, "Then why are you here?" And she kind of blinks. It's a subtle reaction, but it is a reaction. And it's this idea that, and from what I gather by the end of this episode, when she's talking about having lost the sense of community really wasn't about the swaps to begin with. It was about the conversation. It was about the chat rooms. It was about finding excitement in chatting with Tom. And now she shows up probably to have a chat with somebody, and nobody wants to talk there. They're just there to have a marketplace. And that suddenly feels to her like, probably the way she would put it, is the soul of it is lost. She had originally thought the soul of Mutiny was the games, but she was able to be convinced that the soul of Mutiny was the conversations between the people. And now, what is it really? I don't know that she is on board with it just being a place to trade things or swap or buy stuff. We're going to go back to the screen. She's alone now. The other people who were in that space with her have left. And we're going to see a Donna avatar walk up and stand next to her very intentionally. And she looks a little vulnerable when she sees that they've been avoiding each other. Donna writes, and we see it pop up on the screen, "Pick up your phone." And then we're going to hear the phone ring. Cam looks at the phone. "I got to pick it up." She takes off her headphones. She picks up the phone. I love the choice of this shot. So the way they've got this, we can see their 2 offices. Like the camera would be, in theory, set up sort of in the side or the back of Cam's office, and it shoots her, and then it shoots through the window, through the office area, and through Donna's window, so that we can also see Donna in the frame in her office. And we're looking through glass walls all the way, or glass windows all the way. So the way they set up this shot, Cam picks up the phone. She's here. She's going to sit back, and she is in the foreground of the frame. And then there's going to be glass behind her and a whole office area, and then glass behind that. And then behind that glass is Donna, who's on this side of the frame. So we're going to get both of them in the shot, but they're not in the same room. They're not really, they're like as distant as they can be from each other. Donna, you can see that she is actually looking at Cam. She's trying to like will Cam to look at her, but Cam is looking straight forward, not at Donna. And if anything, sometimes she's looking down as well. Really, really interesting shot choice for this. And I think it just goes to show like how many panes of glass exist between these two right now. So, okay. We are going to see Donna say, I was thinking about a wedding ring customization, heard your avatar could maybe use one. So Gordon would have told Donna about Cam's marriage. Cam says, well, that took Gordon longer than I thought. We're going to see Donna directly now in her office. She says, is it okay for me to say I'm happy for you? Then we're going to see Cam directly in her office. She's a little bit slumped over. She speaks very quietly. She says, you can say that. Donna's still looking at her. She says, this is silly. We should celebrate. When does Tom get here? And Cam, we're going to see her directly. Cam says, he got here this morning. We're going to look at Donna directly again. She says, well, then what are you doing tonight? We look back at Cam, and she's just sort of thinks, and we cut to credits. So what's really interesting to me is that when I think about the last scene where we had Joe in the deposition and Gordon, even though they were looking through a screen, Joe was looking into the screen. He was not actually looking at Gordon. Gordon was looking at the screen at Joe in the deposition. But it felt somehow like they were having a conversation directly with each other because they were looking directly at each other, even though they weren't really. But it kind of visually looks like that for us. And for some reason, that made me feel more of a connection between them. Here, we have Donna and Cam in the same building. Donna is even trying to look at Cam at moments, but we're just constantly getting each of them on their own or not exactly interacting with each other, even in the same shot. And it feels like there's a gulf between them for me here. Okay, we're going to see Joe reading the business section of the paper. The headline is Macmillan Utility Board votes to oust founder. I mean, what a difference a season makes, or not even a full season. I mean, gosh, he's getting the real Jacob treatment here. He is in his apartment in the living room on the green couch in front of the windows. It seems to be fairly dark out. Ryan comes in. He says, so how bad is it? Joe hands him the paper. Ryan reads it aloud. He says, Mr. Macmillan knew from the start the Citadel software would never remain free. He wanted to reap the PR benefits and worry about the fallout from the lie later. Jesus, he says. He throws down the paper. Joe says, it's the first shot in what's going to be a very ugly war. I just have to return volley. He puts down his tea. He says, what happened with Ken when you went in? I want the blow by blow. Ryan's going to sit down on the edge of the couch. He's sitting there with Joe. He says, I did what you told me, which was to say nothing, which was easy because I know nothing, which is a sort of passive aggressive way to say, tell me something. He doesn't like not knowing nothing. He doesn't like knowing nothing. Didn't need the double negative there. Joe says, well, good. Now that you're out of there, we can. Ryan says, but Ken didn't fire me. She says, what? Why not? What did he offer you? It's interesting that that's Joe's first reaction. And I do think to a degree Ryan clocks that. Joe's instinct here is, oh, Ken enticed Ryan to stay. What actually happened is Ken just didn't fire him. It was words completely unsaid. So Ryan still has a job. Ryan wasn't going to ask to be fired. So he just didn't get fired. Joe actually takes the leap and is like, what did he offer you? Ryan says, he didn't offer me anything. Joe says, not yet. Ryan looks a little bit pained at this. He has a sense of loyalty to Joe. He has a pretty strong sense of loyalty to Joe. One that I think Joe does not, I don't even know if underestimates is the word. I think he is never, I think that Joe has never had a relationship like the one that he has with Ryan, where somebody would want to be so loyal to him. He has been in business relationships where people are always looking to make a move. And if that happens to undercut you because it benefits them, so be it. He has probably been undercut a number of times in business. We've seen some of it happen. And he has undercuts people sometimes in business. When have we seen Joe have a business relationship where somebody was willing to lay it on the line the way we're going to see Ryan do in this episode for him, or he thinks for Joe? Joe cannot predict. Joe and Ken, it's like, this is the game. This is the business. These are the moves we make. And it's predictable enough to him. But Ryan is going to do stuff in this episode that Joe never could have seen coming. He just couldn't have seen it coming. He's a smart guy. And he wasn't really thinking about sort of the game theory of it all. Like, Ryan's not making the best moves that you would make in the game. Ryan is making the best moves that Ryan thinks he should make, according to Ryan. And Joe does not really, he's not all the way in Ryan's head here. And this scene is setting that up for me, where it's just like, what did he offer me? He offered me nothing. I just still have a job there. Joe knows that it's coming. No, not yet. Ryan looks a little pained at this because Ryan, I think, doesn't want to be bought. He believes in what he has had going with Joe. So Joe says it's probably best if we don't talk or see each other until this is over. Ryan looks back at Joe with just sheer disappointment. Like, in the situation, maybe in Joe. He says, okay. And he stands up and he goes and he grabs his bag. Joe says, look, Ryan, you're the weak link in all this. He knows the only way to get to me is through you. Ryan just walks away and leaves Joe sitting there. Joe really does not understand how far Ryan is prepared to go for Joe here. I think if Joe did understand that, this is not where the conversation would end. He would say, okay, so here's what Ken's about to do next, and here's what we do. Like, even if it's, I don't know, I think if he really knew what Ryan was feeling here, even if the move is, I can't give you information so that you don't have the information, give Ryan context. Let him know what to expect. Let Ryan know he's still actually on your team. He's going to leave Ryan guessing about that here. All right, we're going to get an extreme close-up on Gordon at the dinner, who, again, has this huge news and hasn't told anybody at the table about it. If he did tell people at the table about it, Cam would have been like, oh yeah, I made that happen. And actually, maybe Tom even knows as much as Cam knows, but Donna is in the dark. Gordon is going to be fully distracted by what just happened with Joe for the entire dinner. But we're going to get a close-up, an extreme close-up of Gordon eating as we hear Tom telling the story of how him and Cam got back together. Tom says, so I'm 10 minutes away from going bowling. Now we see Tom. He's looking at Cam. She's a little bashful. He says, and I don't even like bowling. But anyway, there's a knock at the door. Donna's listening very intently to all this. He says, and I open it. I'm thinking it's that weird neighbor asking if his Burmese python is loose in my yard again. He has a neighbor with a Burmese python that gets loose in his yard. Yikes. I don't know if I'd be on board with that. Tom says, but no, it's Cameron. And she has this look on her face. Cam blinks a little bit. It's not really good when Cam blinks. It's like something about it. She's sort of glitching a little. He continues softly. He's like, I'll never forget it. Donna's like, what happened next? Cam and Tom look at each other knowingly and they laugh. And then Donna understands why they're laughing. She's like, okay, so you had the honeymoon before the wedding. At this point, Gordon has heard only this much and he laughs very awkwardly, like he's just tuning into the conversation for this one joke. Like, ha! It's like the loudest ha. Donna says, okay, and how did you propose? She says this to Tom. Tom says, technically I didn't. Cam says, yeah, I proposed to him. Oh, isn't it cute, these two? Tom furrows his brow a little bit. He's like, no, technically you didn't either. Cam says, yes, I did. Oh boy. Tom says, no. She looks at him for clarification, like, And he says, yeah, at some point, Cam said, and he nods for her to continue this cute little story, but she actually doesn't know where he's going with this because she remembers it that she asked him to marry her. He realizes she's not going to continue, and so he goes forward. He says, so Cam says, I wish it could be like this forever. Donna's looking like, isn't this sweet? Tom says, and I said, it could be. And she said, but you won't move to California. Cam looks at Donna. Like she's trying to see what Donna thinks of all this. Like she's looking for Donna's reaction to this story. Tom says, okay, but you won't move to California. And yeah. Cam looks back at Tom from looking at Donna. And she jumps and she says, and then he said, I won't move to California for a girlfriend, but I would move there for my wife. Tom says, and then the next day we found a justice of the peace. Donna puts her hands on the heart, she's like, oh my God, Gordon, isn't that romantic? I'm gonna finish this part of the story first before talking about it. Gordon's drinking. He's not paying any attention to this whole story. He's like, what? She says, Tom and Cam's story. Like the whole thing we've just been hearing. Gordon's like, oh, right. Congratulations. He lifts a glass to toast to everybody. Tom says, thanks. Cheers. He's smiling. He's really genuinely smiling. Cam's giggling. This whole retelling of how they got married is so awkward. They remember it differently. It's like they're different ones of them are taking the credit for it at different moments. And then there's the point when like they're both sort of handing off to each other at the moments that maybe they're too embarrassed to say. Like the fact that Tom won't say the part where he said, I won't move to California for a girlfriend, but I would move there for my wife. It's such an ultimatum. And he doesn't seem to feel comfortable sharing that at the table. And Cam didn't feel comfortable telling the part of the story where it's like, I wish it could be like this forever. These things that they're not willing to say, it's weird because they've got this partnership where sure, they walk over the threshold together and sure they have the, like they've gamified the last name thing and they've they have found a way to tell the story together. But in the way that they're doing it, I'm seeing all the ways that they're not on the same page. It feels less like they're completing each other's sentences in a cute way, and more that they're sort of finishing each other's thoughts because they're literally not willing to continue the story. Like it's something about it. I'm like, wow. What it's so interesting, this episode where we've got all these like sort of pairings of characters, and there are moments when I feel deep connection, and there are moments where there are some relationships where I feel that no matter how close you put these two together, there's something a little off. And this feels a little off, which shouldn't be a surprise for me because Cam kept this thing a secret from everybody for a minute. So, and this is still at this moment a secret from Buzz. So there's that. Okay, we're still at dinner with them. They all take a drink. Gordon takes a really big drink, a big swig of his wine. Donna kind of grimaces when she sees it. Gordon says, so are you going to come work at Mutiny? Tom says, well, actually, no, we decided that that's what killed things the last time, you know, mixing a relationship with work. Gordon pauses. Donna pauses. Cam inhales. She shifts a little bit. It's about as close as it gets to kicking him under the table without doing it. Tom sees all this and he's like, and Gordon's like, really? Tom says, and by that, I mean that lots of couples do that and it's great. It's just really not for us. Cam nods, like, good save. Tom says, but I'm going to swing by Wednesday to say hi to the guys. I can't wait to see the looks on their faces when they hear. Donna says they're going to be shocked. Tom says proudly, mm-hmm. Donna says, you know, Boz has really kept this under his hat. And she's surprised. And Cam sort of nods uncomfortably because Cam hasn't told Boz. How Cam thinks that this is not going to get back to Boz at this point, I don't know. I mean, maybe she's just at a point where she thinks that the way to resolve a conflict with people is to have other people tell them her news, and that will bring them back to her. Because it worked for Donna. She told Gordon she got married. Gordon told Donna, and here they all are sitting at a table celebrating Cam and Tom. Maybe she's hoping it'll get back to Boz this way. I don't know. And if that is what she is thinking, you know, Donna has smiled through it. She's welcomed them back. She's welcomed Cam back. She's having a congenial conversation. But Boz is going to show his very different reaction later. And maybe because of Donna's reaction, she's not expecting it. Okay. Let's see, Boz. God, I love this scene. Okay, Boz is standing outside of Diane's door. We're going to see both the inside and the outside of Donna's house, of Diane's house in this episode. And my goodness, this house is beautiful. So, all right, he's standing outside the door. We don't know whose door it is yet. He decides to knock. There's a really intentional moment of like, should I? And then he knocks. He holds up flowers so we can see flowers in the frame for a second. He's waiting for her to answer. Then we're going to go, the camera's going to set up back from here and we're going to see how big this house is and how tiny Boz looks standing at the front door. The flowers drop a little bit. She hasn't just come right to the door. You know, she might have been on like upstairs or something. Oh my gosh, it takes the woman a minute. He knocks again. Diane answers. Diane sees Boz. Now, remember where we left off with them? They had a lovely post-opera evening. They were hanging out at a bar. They hooked up in the car. She's like, come back to my place with me. He's like, no. And if you're Diane in that situation, maybe it makes you feel a little cheap. And this is the next conversation. So Diane sees Boz at the door. She says awkwardly, Boz. Boz is like, look, I know full well I should have come in last night. I love how he just launches into it. There's no greeting. It's just, here's what I'm here to say. Diane says, I'm listening. And she is, to her credit, she is listening. Boz says, have you heard of the Midas touch? Well, I got the opposite of that. I'm on the outs with my ex-wife and my son. Hell, practically everybody I did business with back in Texas. And to top it all off, I did 14 months in federal prison. He's watching her face to see how this lands. And then we see Diane's face, and she's still listening. Boz says, I thought you should know that before I cross this threshold. Another threshold. Diane has heard all of this. It's all of Boz's deepest fears. And here's the thing, Diane knew all of this was coming, right? So she says, she crosses her arms. She sighs. She says, Latuna, right? Outside El Paso, medium security. You really think I'd go into business with a company and not do background checks on all of its key players? Diane knew all this. She knew all this and gave Boz signals anyway that she wanted to be with him and hooked up with him anyway. Like, Diane knows what she wants. She knew him. She knew she wanted him. Boz takes all this in like, oh, she knew she wanted all this. Okay. And another great choice with the camera work here. So we're going to see over her shoulder, she's sort of standing up against the open door. She's sort of blocking Boz because he's on one side of the door. Boz walks to the other side of the open door and leans against that side of the wall. So in the way that happens in camera, it looks like he's stepping in, or maybe that she's opening the door more, but all he actually is doing is just switching position to the other side of the door, still outside the door. So really interesting, like, sort of visual trick that happens. But I feel like he's coming in, like she's letting him in. So he leans over to the other side of the door and he says, and then he gets cute and he gestures with the flowers. He says, so you think of me as a key player? And we see the flowers kind of wave through the doorway. He smiles a little bit and she laughs. She's like, just give me the damn flowers and stop making problems where there aren't any. And he gives her the flowers and he follows her inside. Enough said. This might be the moment where I fell in love with Diane. I've loved Diane from the beginning because, heck, I really like Annabeth Gish. So you put her in a scene, even from the very first scene she was in the beginning of the season, I was on board. But this line is like all wrapped up in one, why I love Diane. If you had an entire show of Diane's, it would not be probably very interesting because it's like, cut the drama already and just get inside. You can't have an entire show of that. But I love that we have this character on TV who's willing to say things like, this is not a problem. Totally squashes all of his insecurities in a matter of seconds. And he's willing to have his insecurities squashed in seconds. He makes the reveal. She's like, it's fine. She means it. He knows she means it. And now it's fine. Find somebody in your world who makes your insecurities go away like this. I don't know. And it doesn't even feel codependent. It just feels like, I'm telling you what's up. Nothing is what's up. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know. It's gosh, she just puts it away. Because remember, like, it could be really like to have the whole come on back to my place, and for him to be like, no, hooking up in the car is fine with me. Like that could make you feel a certain type of way. And she's just willing to put that away. And so is he. And I think it just goes to show you this might very well be at this moment the most mature relationship we have seen on this show. We have seen two married couples so far in this show, in this episode, and I don't know that I feel the healthiness of any of those. But like this, where Diane and Boz are right now, makes me want to see more from them. Okay, so that's me about Diane and Boz. All right, let's go back to Cam. They're still at the restaurant, but we're in the ladies' bathroom. Cam's washing her hands. Another woman leaves. Diane comes in. A lot of this happening where other people in the room with Cam, they leave and Donna comes in. So they're going to smile at each other awkwardly because now they have to have an actual face-to-face conversation, just them. Cam reaches toward her to throw her paper towel out. And unfortunately for Cam, that sort of crosses into Donna's sphere and like fosters a conversation. Donna says, look, I just wanted to, Cam says, Donna, look, we weren't keeping it just from you, okay? Tom's mom only found out last Friday. Donna says, no, I get it. It must have been fun having a secret nobody knew about. Cam sort of walks towards the bathroom door and reaches for the handle because this part of the conversation has been safe. Cam smiles a bit. She's like, yeah, a little. Donna says, would have been nice to get a heads up you were moving out, though. The girls really miss you. Yeah, there are repercussions. Yeah, Cam didn't just leave Donna. She called Gord on the ham radio, but she has not had a conversation with Joni and Haley. So Cam's going to admit, yeah, I regret that. And then she is going to further admit, look, it's just, I haven't had the easiest time trusting you lately. She's sort of talking around it. Donna says, no, I know. And she shifts a little bit in place. She says, I think that's probably because I lied to you. Cam maybe wasn't expecting her to say that out loud. Maybe she thought they were going to dance around this a little bit. Donna's going to meet it head on here. Donna says, I hate it. It's been uncomfortable and awful, and I just hate it. Cam breathes in. She says, yeah, I want to trust you again. I do. I want things to go back the way they used to be between us. She breathes in. She says, I miss it. There's no but there. It's like, I want things to be the way they were. Donna says, I miss it too. They give each other a little lipless smile. I don't know what to call this expression. I'm going to call it a lipless smile. It's not really a smile. It's an awkwardness. Cam says, so where does that leave us? Donna says, can we just start over? Cam is going to sigh. She says, yeah, let's just have a fresh start. Let's just do it. So, coming off the back of this Boz and Diane conversation where they're like, let's just put the past behind us. Cam and Donna seem to be doing that as well. Donna agrees. A fresh start. They're going to smile at each other, a real smile, not a lipless smile. And Donna says, so, and it startles Cam a little bit. She says, in the spirit of complete honesty, I've been giving it a lot of thought, and I really think we should go public. Those two have a lot to talk about. Some big things. A lot of air needs to be cleared here in this bathroom. Cam's eyes go pretty wide because Donna's going there too. She walks closer to Donna. She says, okay, well, I'm not completely opposed to it. Donna's like, you're not? I thought for sure we're at odds on everything else. Why not this? Cam says, no, I mean, we're in the land of the IPO. If I wasn't open to it, I would have just stayed in Texas. Donna says, well, imagine having the resources to take the company wherever we want to go. She's dreaming big. She's enthusiastic about this. Cam says, yeah, I have a pretty big imagination. Donna says, I'm counting on it. And this is the last time it's going to feel good between Cam and Donna. We had a brief moment in this episode where they kind of came together on the same page, but that is the end of that in this episode anyway. All right, so now we're going to cut to the next morning at the office. Donna's pouring coffee in the kitchen. Cam rushes up with a bunch of papers in her hand. because now Cam's got the enthusiasm that Donna had the night before. They both want to move forward on this IPO. Cam says, okay, Donna, you're here. So after last night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about all the things we can do to upgrade Mutiny before the IPO. I wrote down some ideas and I think we should get started right away. I paused the screen, which I've never done before on these papers, whenever I could. We don't see the entire paper in the frame. So there's a lot of times that like some of the words will be cut off, some of the sentences. But here's what I've got so far. On the first page, the top says, Swap Meet is taking over Mutiny. Our mission, save community. The first step is grow our user base and preserve what makes Mutiny special before, and then we can IPO. So what's not first step? It's sort of part of the mission. Now, the first step is actually move Mutiny multi-platform. Can't just be on Commodore. Less people are buying Commodores. If we stay exclusive, growth will slow or strangle. The second big bullet is also more swaps. I can't read the rest of what's under that. It gets cut off. On page 2, so when Donna's going to flip over the page, on page 2, what we can see is focuses user attention on items of the most value, creates higher concentration of value goods on Mutiny. So like where they had like a $380 item, maybe that's what they focus on. Putting a pin or mark on an object. I don't know if that's something the user could potentially do, like marking to themselves which ones they're interested in. Also, roll out additional chat functions to express interest in objects of greater than daily something. I can't read what that word says. A third one is create a separate, more expensive tier for vendors. And then I can't read the rest because you can't see complete sentences. So that's just what we can see. Now, first of all, now, if we look back from 2024 and we look at all those things she wrote, makes a lot of sense. That is how people started organizing information on the internet. You know, being able to mark an item and save it for yourself, being able to, for Mutiny to be able to highlight items that they want to push. You know, we have seen so many different ways that companies do that now, especially at the point of payment or the point of sale. You know, we now see things like other customers have purchased or frequently purchased together. And that's ways that companies will often signal something from the thing that you're looking at. And she's sort of already thinking this way. Cam's ideas are good ideas. From a 2024 standpoint, we know that they've headed that way. But they're big ideas. Now, I also want to highlight that the number one thing on her list, we can't just be on Commodores. Less people are buying Commodores. If we stay exclusive, growth will slow or strangle. That, if you remember, one season ago, was one of the stipulations that Joe had for West Group to give Mutiny the lower rate to use their server. Moving multi-platform and not just being on Commodores, had they done that like a season ago, this wouldn't be on Cam's list anymore. And this is number 1 on her list. Now, is it number 1 on her list because I don't know. Like, I think the Joe of it all is really interesting to me. Should I be removing the Joe of it all? Is this just a truth and a reality? Joe predicted what needed to happen. He was saying the right thing all the way back then. Cam resisted it, but did it get in her head a little bit? Has she been following this and paying attention to this? You know, there's something about the fact that like Donna feels like this is Cam putting on the brakes. And you could say that Cam is using a Joe idea to put on the brakes. So there's that. But is she really, like, all of this time a lot of time has elapsed. since when Joe initially proposed this. And maybe it's just become more and more true as the months have gone on. So I don't know. I think this is a really interesting number one bullet point on her list. And it's the thing. Donna knows this is what goes on Joe's list. They faked this for Joe in 10 Broad 36, episode 206. So I'm just so intrigued by the fact that this is number one on the list. And had they actually done this for Cam, who I think is actually very excited about the IPO idea, but is not excited about where their platform is right now. And I think she genuinely made this list because she feels like this is a list she really needed to make. And moving to Commodore was number one on it. So I don't know. I think she genuinely does feel like this is an important step for Mutiny for the future. And she's ready to take it now. It's so loaded. And it's not even really addressed here unless you stop the screen on that page. Okay. Donna's flipping through. I think we should, Cam's like, I think we should get started right away. Donna's like, oh, wow, there's a lot here. Cam says, yeah, I know. It's like once I got started, the floodgates opened. She seems very excited. She thinks Donna's on the same page with all this. Donna is still flipping through. She grabs some more coffee filter. She comes back. She says, well, you obviously put a lot of thought and effort into this. Cam says, I did. Yeah, it totally reconfigures Mutiny and Swap Meet while returning them to their roots, excising everything that's bad and keeping what's good. Oh, and yeah, it takes us beyond the Commodore onto other platforms, which we have to do. That became obvious around 5 a.m. Donna says, other platforms, right? How long do you see this taking? Cam exhales. She says, a year, maybe 2. Donna's eyebrows raise a little bit. She says, the goal, Cam says, but the goal is to do it right? Donna says, I'm sure everything you have here, everything you've outlined is great. I am. Cam looks at her with some hope. Donna's like, but we can't afford to wait 2 years. Cam says, sure we can. Donna says, the time frame for the IPO is 3 months. Cam's a little surprised. She says, 3 months. No one ever said anything about 3 months. Why is that suddenly the magic number? Donna says, because we have an acquisition offer in hand. People are paying attention to us right now. Cam says, but what we have right now is broken. Donna smiles a bit. She says, what we have right now, CompuServe, it thinks, is worth $20 million. Cam says, yes, but if we make the improvements the way I know we can, we'll be worth $100 million. I thought we were in agreement on this. Donna says, we still can be. Cam says, okay, look, I really hate to play this card, but as head of the company, I'm saying, Donna turns to the window, that we'll need to put the brakes on any IPO until we get our house in order. Donna sort of sucks in her cheek. She turns back to Cam. She says, okay, how about this? I will read this more closely to get a better understanding of what you have in mind. She's going to finish that thought, but Cam stops her. Cam says, great. She said it dismissively, and she's starting to leave. She says, okay, and if there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. I promise this is the way to go. She's going to take that as a full acceptance. They are not on the same page. Cam using that card she knew she shouldn't use is one she should not lean on so frequently, because this for Donna was like, screw you and the horse you rode in on. And it sends Donna over the edge, I think. Now, why didn't Cam know 3 months was the time frame on this? Why did she think she had as much as 1 to 2 years with this IPO offer? I think if she had come in saying that up front, maybe she could have like, hey, look, I know that there's a ticking clock on this offer. I think if you start there, it shows, but maybe gives her now like a framework to say, but here's why I'm suggesting we slow it down. But because she didn't do that, Donna and Cam appear to be very much at odds with each other. I don't know if there's actually, like, I don't know if in the VC world, if other companies have found a way to meet in the middle on this. I'd be very curious to know if any of you know of real life examples where it wasn't just Donna's way or Cam's way here, but there was actually something in the middle of this. Is there a resolution to this, or is it just a gamble? Is it just always a gamble? Did every single one, I mean, one thing that I'm thinking of is like, does every single one of Cam's ideas need to be adopted? Or does she have a priority list? It might take 1 to 2 years to do all of these things, but are there a few things they could have done quicker within a few months that they could then move forward and Cam would have some comfort? Like, is there a middle ground? The way they just approach this conversation, they appear to be as widely apart as you can possibly be. And Cam bringing up I run the company does not make Donna want to see her side. I do think that Cam will do a better job in starting the next conversation about this with Donna. But she really does not have sort of any facility in how she approaches Donna in this one. Okay. So Cam's going to walk away. She's going to leave Donna there, who is just sort of flapping the notes in her hand, and then she walks away. We're going to see Joe pacing in his apartment on the phone. He is angry. He's in his casual white t-shirt with a little cardigan over it. This is Joe's new season 2 casual wear for Joe was sweats. This is Joe's casual wear now. Joe says, I just got off the phone with Forbes and it doesn't sound like a generous piece. They were asking me questions about West Group, questions about Cardiff, questions about IBM. There's a knock on the door. He goes to answer it. And he's saying, listen, they've clearly got an angle and it's not one that's favorable to me. He opens the door and Gordon's standing there. He's like, I'll call you back. Joe hangs up the phone and he says to Gordon, I guess you talked to your lawyers. Gordon nods. His arms are folded. He walks in. Gordon proceeds to survey Joe's entire apartment top to bottom for the rest of the scene as they have their dialogue. I love it. Gordon's just kind of walking through. It's like he's putting little stickers on things. Gordon says, wow, this is not what I expected. Remember, the last time Gordon saw who is Joe? Because Gordon has seen 3 places that he's lived in. He has seen Joe's apartment in season 1, which was just glass. It was gray and white and blue, and it was gray and white and black with like bluish tint because of the sky. That was Joe's apartment in season 1. Like, it was so sterile that Gordon's like, did he move out? And then there was the apartment he lived in with Sarah in season 2, which was like very much decorated to Sarah's tastes, it seemed like. A lot daintier, a lot frillier, I don't know. A lot more like I don't know, just like a lot more fabric. Season 3, this is his apartment and it's got this sort of like zen sort of like Asian inspired. There's blue, there's green, there's color, but it's sort of like a middle ground between season 1 and season 2 places to live. So this is what Gordon's seeing, and he's like, not what I expected. I sure do love that couch. I take it you used a designer? The big green couch. And then he goes over, there's an end table. He picks up a big art piece. It looks like a big vase. He says, and hey, me and Donna have the same vase, Pier 1, right? Joe says it's not a vase. I commissioned that from Kayako Sakaniwa, a Tokyo artist. Gordon's like, puts it down. Gordon's being fairly cavalier with Joe's stuff. Joe says, yeah, she calls it serenity. Gordon, I imagine you have some questions. Beyond the decor, Gordon says, not really. You obviously wanted to get fired. He's walking through the room. He's still surveying everything. He says, I've seen that move before. Joe says, it's more complicated than that. Gordon says, yeah, shocker. He walks to look out the window. He wants to see Joe's view. All of this could be his. It's like a moment from like a new moment from the Lion King that we've never seen. Everything the light touches. Gordon says, man, this is one kick-ass view. You can see the bridge from here. We're going to see Gordon in focus, sort of looking through the window. Joe is out of focus, but he's way back further in the room at the table. Gordon says, I'll bet you get back every dollar you put into this place. Hell, I might even buy it from you. The furniture, the Serenity vase, the whole kit and caboodle. I so love Gordon here. Joe says, I never wanted you not to profit. Gordon says, I, Joe McMillan, stole the code to our security software from Gordon Clark of Clark Computers. Everything I've earned is his. It's the most truthful thing you've ever said. Honestly, I was moved. He goes to sit on Joe's couch, making himself very at home here. Here's the thing, like Gordon has been waiting for the moment for Joe to like take ownership of this so he could just stick it to him. But he's missing like kind of an important piece that Joe's going to bring up later. Joe says, I never figured you for a sore winner. Gordon said, me either, but it's nice to know we can still surprise ourselves. So what do you say we cut through the bullshit and you just tell me what your angle is in all of this? It's a good question. Gordon wants to know, like, this feels like a move. Gordon has now been involved in it. What is the end game? Like, he's not going to get his hopes up about anything. So Joe kind of looks away. Gordon waits because he wants an answer to this. Joe says, the truth is, and this is the truth. He looks at Gordon. He says, I have come across something. And because Joe's standing back by the table, Gordon, if he looks in Joe's direction, can kind of see that string map that Ryan had been working on and that table full of binders. So he says, I've come across something that I'm convinced is, well, it's something that I really believe in, and we'll leave it at that. But I couldn't convince my board of its value, so I ignored them. I moved forward, and just like that, I lost my company. I was out of moves, and then it occurred to me, what if it wasn't my company? Gordon's observing all this. All of this is true. He is very specifically leaving out what the idea is, because this is not something that he's willing to have Gordon poach from him. Gordon points up, kind of grasping the situation. He says, like, so you screwed over your evil corporate overlord by parachuting your stake out to me. Okay, I get that, sort of. How do you come out on top in this scenario? Joe says, I don't. Everything I had is yours. If you feel like I deserve a percentage, well, that's entirely up to you. He's like, Joe's like, I don't, but charity, your charity specifically. Or it says, so your plan was for me to just give you the money after you stole everything from me? Gordon's incredulous at this. But Joe raises some good points here. He says, you wrote the code. Agreed. But I offered you partnership twice, and you turned me down twice. Gordon gulps and he stands, because this is actually true. And not only is that true, but the first time Joe offered him partnership was while he was before he had even left the office for the guy who gave him the capital to start pursuing Gordon's idea. He called him from the lobby and said, hey, he was about to say, Gordon, I got us money to do the thing that you like. He was trying to fold him in from literally the beginning. And Gordon said no at that point. So, and then he said no again, which we saw later in the deposition. So, I mean, Joe raises a really good point here. he didn't cut Gordon out. He tried to involve Gordon, and Gordon cut himself out and has been blaming Joe ever since. And I've always felt, and I've been saying it here, that this is probably another thing that exists between him and Donna, because between Gordon and Donna, because Gordon kind of knows that he probably would have pursued this, I think, if not for the fact that Donna issued the ultimatum and he had to move to California. And it wasn't just about moving to California, because Joe was like, I'll move to California with you. We could do this idea in California. He said, I have to work at Mutiny. That was one of Donna's stipulations. And look how all that's been turning out. So, there's all that. Okay. So Joe goes through the whole, I've offered you partnership twice, you rejected it twice. I have to think you're not so myopic that you can't see that I might be entitled to a little return for turning it into what I've turned it into. Gordon walks toward this string map that's behind Joe. He says, this is an interesting piece. And whose work is this? He sees the binders all over the table. We see binders that say ARPANET phase out, Princeton specs, TCP, IP architecture, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign specs. Gordon is standing in front of this map now. Whose work is this? Joe says, mine. Gordon, to be clear, you don't have to give me anything. He's redirecting the conversation. It is, in fact, Ryan's work, or at least partially Ryan's work. Gordon is really looking at this map. He says, thank you for making that clear. Joe says, but I built an entire company and I've just handed you everything. All I'm asking for is basically a finder's fee. Gordon says about the map, he says, Joe, I really do like this piece. What do you call it? Joe says, it's an abstract. Gordon says, yeah, because it seems to me like one of those paintings that the more you look at it, the more it seems to come into focus. The camera, Gordon's out of focus in this moment and the camera focuses on him. Lovely touch, beautifully done. Joe says, Gordon, I know this is a leap of faith on my part, but faith is something I'm working on. Gordon says, faith is a valuable thing. I just look for somewhere else to place it. He says it coldly and he walks away. He says, thanks for the company, Joe. Gordon's got all the cards at the moment. He's got all the cards. And now the question is, what's he going to do with this? This is the moment where you really test your own character. What's Gordon going to learn about himself in this situation? Joe put himself at Gordon's mercy, very much so. He's made some good points. Gordon's angry with him, but maybe he should be less angry. And but it's Gordon's journey to figure out how he's going to feel about this. And so Joe did what he could here. And Gordon has to sit with it and decide what he wants to do. All right. We're going to need to see another visitor to Diane's house. The doorbell rings. We are inside Diane's house with Diane and, of course, Boz. She's going to go to the door. She's going to open it. Diane says, Donna, is everything okay? Donna's holding Cam's notes. She basically walks straight from the office to Diane's house. She says, Cameron's gone off the deep end and I don't know what to do. She came in today with this mutiny manifesto that will kill the IPO. She gives it to Diane. She just lock, stock, and barrel, just gives it all to Diane. She walks into the next room, makes herself at home, kind of like what Gordon just did. And she's committed to it. She did everything but nail it to my forehead. Diane doesn't really want her there. She's kind of antsy. She's kind of shifting around a little. She's like, maybe I should take the night to read this over. It's like that. I'm just washing my hair of it all. Donna's gonna go to the next room. She's gonna sit on Diane's couch like Gordon just did with Joe. She's in the dark even. She's like, why wait? Why not read it now? I can wait. Boz, it's really interesting layout of this house because there's another room beyond the room that the sort of living room area or sitting room area that Donna's in. There's sort of an open doorway Boz just walks around the corner and through it. And what's interesting is that Donna's sitting in the dark, but the room that Boz is in has like sunlight streaming through it. So he is all lit up, all angelically. He comes in and he's like, because I think she's trying to stop you from figuring out I'm here. Might as well. Boz is not going to hide this. Donna stands, she's surprised. She's like, oh, Boz, hi. She's looking back and forth between them. Boz is like, oh, hi. And Donna looks over at Diane, who's smiling at Boz. Boz says, it's a relatively recent development. He walks over to Diane. He says, but if you're worried about Cameron finding out, I haven't talked to her in over a month. So say what you came to say. Once again, I love that there is no like, these Boz and Diane, whatever they're starting, seems to be mature enough that they're willing to take ownership of it. They weren't going to tell Donna, but here she is, and they're not going to hide Boz in the closet for this entire conversation. So Boz is saying this. Diane's looking through Cameron's notes. She's like, this is a lot. Says, yeah. Diane says, how long to implement? This is a year, maybe 2. Diane says, that's a long time to wait. She and Boz are now looking through the notes even more. She says, why is she against the IPO? Donna says, she's not, and that's what makes it so frustrating, but it's what happens with Cameron. And Boz, you can back me up. She gets in her own way. Boz says, it's a little more complicated than that, but I suppose that's part of it. And says, so what do you want to do? Donna says, I don't know. Cameron acts like she's majority shareholder, but she's not. She's got more votes than anyone, but not more votes than everyone. And says, I prefer you'd find common ground. Boz is nodding at this. She says, are you sure you can't? Just this morning you were telling me what a wonderful time you had celebrating her marriage. Boz hears this and he slowly turns to Diane. How neither Diane nor Donna picked up that if Boz hasn't talked to her in a month, she wouldn't even know about he wouldn't know about Cameron's marriage. I don't know how we missed that part, but now Boz hears this and he's like, so Diane's continuing, like, how excited you were to start a new chapter. Donna says, right. And then she comes in and she dumps this on me. Boz steps in between them. He's like, back up a beat. Cameron got married. Donna's face falls. She's like, oh, Boz, I assumed you knew. I'm sorry. True. She absolutely did assume that he knew. And in fact, she had said as much to Cam, and Cam said nothing. So Cam saying nothing kind of suggested that Boz did know. She didn't correct Donna. So I don't feel like this is a move from Donna. I feel like this is just a mistake from Cam. Boz says, don't be, it wasn't your news to tell. Diane's mouth has just dropped open. I think it was this Boz reveal that did that. I think this is her heart sort of bleeding for Boz a little bit in this moment. Okay. We've got Gordon reading. And by the way, going back to that last scene, why, like, if I get this sort of need to move the plot forward, but I think a question I'd be asking if I were in Diane's position here and I weren't trying to move the plot forward, I think I'd be asking which are the most important developments here that we can make within 3 months? Can we come up with a short list and then a road to getting the rest of the stuff done? Like, I'll finish this thought after the board meeting, but I think I'd be thinking that way. What is the middle ground here? Maybe try proposing one. So, all right, we're going to see Gordon reading. He's looking at that map of the US. He's been starting to recreate what he was seeing on Joe's board with some, some drawings and some string of his own. He's got Berkeley, Joe, Stanford written on the map in red ink. He also has a connection with MIT, and he's got sort of a circle happening between a few things. He squints at the map. He's reading about NSFNet. He's in the closet, a closet that is now no longer cluttered by clothing, as we've said before. And Donna is going to come in, and she says, "Love what you've done with the place." Gordon says, "Drinks with Diane." Donna says, "Diane, no drinks." She sits. Donna says, "It's Cameron. She changed her mind about the IPO." Gordon says, "What? She wants to kill it?" Donna says, "That's not her intent, but if she has her way, it will be the result." He says, "Sorry to hear that." She says, "Nothing's settled yet, but moving forward means getting all the equity owners to overrule her." Donna's really putting the wheels in motion here. Gordon looks concerned. He turns. Donna says, "We've got 35%, and then there's Diane and Boz and Doug and Craig." Gordon says, "And Cameron has no idea this is happening?" Donna says, "Nothing is happening. It's all talk at the moment, but I have to explore every option." Gordon says, "We don't own 35% of the company." Donna says, "Sure we do." Gordon says, "No, you own 25%, and Clark Computers owns 10% for buying the mainframe." Donna kind of can't believe what he's saying here. He says, "And Clark Computers, i.e. me, doesn't like the idea of blindsiding Cameron and shoving this IPO down her throat." Donna stands. She sort of can't believe it. Like, Gordon's not with her on this. She says, it's just a gross mischaracterization. Gordon says, "Donna, if you pull this move, I guarantee you she'll see it as an act of war, and you will cross a line that you cannot uncross. So don't kid yourself." I mean, I think what a prophetic statement that is. Donna's mouth is just hanging open. He's not siding with her, which probably hurts, but it's not false. She whispers, "It's been a long day. I'm going to bed." He nods. She leaves. Oh my God. What a big issue in this relationship. Like, this is not small. Again, could anybody just say, is there a middle ground here? Donna doesn't want a middle ground. Cameron used the "it's my company" one time too many, I think. And Donna is not willing to see a middle ground here. I think even if Diane or Gordon had said, "There's a middle ground, here's what it is," I don't know. I don't know if she would have taken it. All right, so we're gonna see a meeting room. It's Joe's office with like no stuff in it. There's no tables, it's just chairs, 3 chairs. We're gonna see the back of Ryan's head. He's having a conversation with Ken and a lawyer. And they're taking up the beginning of this, they're just taking up a tiny little piece of like the middle of the frame, like right about here. So the lawyer says, "Did you ever witness Mr. McMillan talking to Gordon Clark?" Ryan says, "Nope." The lawyer says, "Did Mr. McMillan ever confide any plans he had with Gordon Clark?" Ryan says, "No." Ken scoffs. He says, "Don't you find it odd? The day we 86'd NSFNet and we shit-canned Joe, he finds religion and says Gordon invented the software the company is built on, giving his ex-partner, the one suing him, everything?" Ryan is silent at all this. He hasn't shaved. He doesn't seem like he's been sleeping. Certainly hasn't shaved. Ken says, "Or maybe you didn't know. Maybe Joe didn't tell you that part. And I always assumed that you were involved." Ken just needles Ryan here. He says, "They didn't cut you out of the deal, did they?" No need to answer. Look, I'm sorry, kid. It's bigger than you. You're just a pawn that Joe sacrificed in the end game, which means that you're useless to us. You're probably useless to him too. So that's it. It's time for you to go." Ryan's like, "So I'm fired?" Ken says, yes. Ryan says, "Good." He stands and he leaves, and he pauses when he gets outside the door because we're going to see the secretary, Cynthia. And Cynthia says, "Mr. Clark?" So he's in that waiting room area. She says, Mr. Clark, they're ready for you. Ryan looks, and Gordon gets up. Um, we're actually gonna see Gordon. There's a worker behind Gordon who's taking down the Macmillan utility sign and replacing it with Citadel utility. Gordon stands up. Ryan says, Gordon, what are you doing here? Gordon says, hey, Ryan, you were right. The thing that you and Joe were working on, it's gonna be huge. Ryan does not know what to make of this. We're going to get a pre-lap of the lawyer's voice when Gordon goes in to have his meeting. But before we do that, just to like unpack this bit with Ryan. Ryan was maybe never in the room or paying attention to the guys when Gordon was telling his ghost stories about Joe McMillan at Mutiny. You know, we see that Ryan so often was holed up by himself in the basement or working very hard at his desk and not really paying attention to what everybody else was doing in the room. It would be hard to believe if you're Ken that you didn't know anything about Gordon's background with Joe, but I believe that specifically Ryan could be oblivious to all of this. Or at least oblivious to enough of it that he didn't know to ask Joe questions about Macmillan utility. So there's that. Joe has not been sharing that information about Gordon with Ryan because I guess why would he? Like, what would make him think that he should? And Gordon, Joe was just specifically trying to hide all of the NSFnet details from Gordon. So Gordon is piecing things together on his own. But when you couple the conversation with Ken and the conversation with Gordon that Ryan just had, he wants to be so loyal to Joe. He so believes in Joe and what Joe's been working on, but he's going to need some clarity based on the conversations he just had, because Ken really planted some seeds in there. This idea that all of this was a move for Joe to work with Gordon. You know, like for Ken, it seems very plausible. Like this is exactly where his brain should and would go, because this is the moves that Joe has appeared to make, but that's not actually what happened at all. And Ryan's experience is truly Ryan's experience, and he gets to keep that, and that's his, and that really happened. But when reframed in Ken's way, it makes him question everything that he just experienced. And now Gordon coming up to him and saying that idea you've been working on with Joe, it's a really good one. It would make it seem like Joe has talked to Gordon about everything, except Joe hasn't. Gordon has been working it out himself. So all of this is going to lead to make Ryan question his situation with Joe, when actually he doesn't need to, because this is like the one time Joe was not trying to, like, he was actually working with Ryan on all of this stuff, and he's trying to protect that. And despite his very best efforts, all these people around him are assuming the worst and sort of leading him down the path anyway. So now let's go into this room with Ken, the lawyer, and Gordon. The lawyer says, so Mr. Clark, and the lawyer is addressing Gordon. Ken is at the window looking out the window, not looking at Gordon. He says, so Mr. Clark, regardless of what Mr. McMillan thinks he got away with, we plan to fully challenge the veracity of his confession. Gordon raises his voice to get Ken's attention. He says, hey, listen, I think we can speed things up without the lawyers. I mean, I don't have mine. What do you say we lose yours? Ken is going to turn. He's going to send the lawyer out, sort of give him a nod. The lawyer does not like that very much. Ken says, you're not really going to try to convince me that you and Joe didn't talk about this, right? Gordon's going to join him over to the window, because actually, Joe didn't. But Ken is making the correct assumptions. Like if I were Ken, I'd be thinking the exact same things. And in fact, like this is exactly the sort of train of thought that maybe like Cam and Donna, especially Cam, would have had last season. Like this is what this all looks like. If it walks like a duck and talks, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it must be a duck. Sort of way of thinking about Joe. Ken's doing that now. Can't blame him. So Ken says, you're not going to convince me that Joe didn't talk about this with you, right? Gordon joins him at the window and says, I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. I'm here to offer you a deal that will make that question irrelevant. Now, my lawyers say I'm looking at a floor of 25 million. Ken says, your lawyers are dreaming. Gordon says, I'm willing to take 10% of that. Ken looks at him and he says, along with the equipment that Joe bought and the deals that he made for NSFNet. Ken says, even if I wanted to make that deal, I can't just hand you a government contract. I mean, I could trade you the infrastructure, but you would have to chase that bid. Gordon says, no, I think for 20 million, you can make a call to the sector chief and make that happen. Ken says, or I could just sue you and keep it all. Gordon says, yeah, you could, but you'll lose. And I think you know that, which Ken does. He says, we do it my way. I'm giving you everything that you want in exchange for nothing you care about. Ken says, one thing sticks in my craw. We make this deal, you turn around and give Joe everything he wants, and that son of a bitch wins again. Gordon says, and what makes you think you're the only one in this room that wants to stick it to Joe McMillan? Ken's interest is piqued. Gordon Clark. I mean, this guy, when did he get so damn good? He took a page out of Joe's old playbook, and this is like Gordon's all grown up, like I think about Gordon at his very first meeting with Joe, where he interrupted Joe's close, and Joe was like, you never interrupt me during the close. And then, I think if I fast forward to Joe and Gordon and Nathan Cardiff at the end of season 1, and Nathan Cardiff saying, I should just, fire you all and stop this, sell this company. And Joe makes a really strong case for why he should keep the company and let them run this thing. And Gordon does come in for the close there, and he's effective. Now, Gordon takes charge in this meeting. Lose your lawyer, Ken. Here's the deal I'm making with you. No, I'm driving a hard bargain. This is my last and final offer. Like he's very in command in this conversation. And he really does hold all the cards, because not only does he have all this information that Joe didn't even want to give him, he just knew how to interpret Joe's map and all the binders he was seeing on the table. He's got all this information from Joe. He knows full well that he did write the code for both Sonaris and this antivirus to, the tabula rasa disk that he gave to Joe. He could probably recreate all of that. And Joe does not have those tech skills. Joe can't code. So like, if pressed on this, they will not be able to sue Gordon effectively, like at all. Ken knows this. Gordon's holding all the cards here. He's really approaching this meeting in a very smart way. But once again, when we get all the way to the end of this episode and Gordon and Joe actually do decide to partner together, all of this would look a certain way to Ken. It makes every bit of sense to me why Ken is approaching this the way that he is. And I'm very proud of Gordon for approaching this meeting the way that he is. Okay, so he seems to have convinced Ken. All right, now we're going to go to Cam and Tom. They're outside the Mutiny office door. They're holding each other sort of by the elbows. They're all dressed up. Cam says, okay, let's get this over with. They nod to each other. She says, remember to detach Archie from me when he uses this as an excuse to hug me past a socially acceptable amount of time. Tom nods. He says, I got it. All right. Let's go fry some coders circuits, Mrs. Howe, Rendon. Cam says no. He says, Rendon Howe. She says, we'll figure it out. They both say, okay. And they kiss. What a cute little name game. They're just not, is it? So, and by the way, now that I've mentioned Archie and the socially acceptable amount of hugging time, be sure you check out Gabriel Manick's interview that I did. We talk a little bit about this point, and why this was a detail of Archie's character. Okay, so they're going to open the door. They walk into the office. The team sees Tom, and they're so excited to see Tom Rendon. Lev says, Tom. Carl's like, Rendon. Yo-Yo's like, dude. Bodhi runs up. He says, what are you doing here? He hugs Tom. Lev says, the prodigal son returns. Carl says, Tom the bomb. He hugs Tom. Archie says, finally, a real coding lead. Yo-Yo says, how long are you here for, Rendon? Cam is going to hold up her finger, but she's going to do it like an FU, but it's her ring finger. Well, really, it would be this hand for me. So it's not actually her giving an FU to everybody. She's not flipping everybody off. She's showing her ring. Once again, this is not how you show people a wedding ring. Why can't any of these characters show wedding rings in a normal way? Ugh. She'll do another ring showing later that actually makes more sense, but I just saw that and I cracked up. I'm sorry. It's like remember last season when Joe shows Gordon his ring from getting married to Sarah and he shows it this way. I was like, what the actual? Okay. I love this detail. Anyway, so okay, so she holds up her ring finger and Tom says, kind of indefinitely. And Bodhi's like, wait a minute, what? Cam's excited now. She says, yeah, we got married. This is, other than when Cam shared this news with Gordon, this is the next time we actually see her seem excited about being married to Tom. They're both everybody's all smiles here. Bodhi's like, when did this happen? She says a couple weeks ago in Texas. Yo-Yo's, well, okay, everybody's all smiles except maybe Yo-Yo, who I think had a thing for her back in the day. He says, you're not pregnant, are you? Oh, yeah. Cam says, do I look pregnant? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if that's like a useful way to judge it. Bodhi says, why wasn't I invited? We're going to see Gordon sort of step into the back of the room. He's got all this Gordon has so much information in this episode. It's really weighing on him what he knows Donna's going to do here. Archie goes in for the long hug. He's like, come here for Cam. And he's like, so happy for you too. Tom is it's going to take a little too long. Tom will pull them apart. He's okay. All right. Thank you. Archie's like, you're a very lucky man. Donna wheels in the cake and the champagne. She's smiling broadly. We know she can compartmentalize. We know this is fake Donna. She says, here's to Mutiny's first official marriage. May it be a long and happy one. And based on the things that she's going to say later, so fake. Like what she's thinking and what her face is showing are two completely different things. Gordon sees all this from the back of the room. He's very serious. Everybody is clapping. Cam is smiling. Gordon walks away. He can't be in the room for all this. We're going to see everybody eating cake. I've missed this detail in the past. I love this little conversation with Carl and Bodhi. Carl's like, Bodhi, would you stop drinking out of the bottle, dude? He's drinking champagne straight out of the bottle. He's chugging it. Carl's like, no, just stop drinking out of the bottle. Come on, man. Bodhi says, I bet I can finish it. Carl says, you'll have to leave room for cake. And he smashes cake in Bodhi's face. I heart this. I heart it so much. All right, Cam is going to whistle and come over to Gordon. Gordon's not going to approach Cam because, gosh, he has so much he doesn't want to accidentally say. But Cam is going to come over to Gordon. She's got some cake for him. She whistles and she's like, see cute, see cute. So cute. Gordon smiles at her. He says, hey, congratulations. She gives him the cake. She says, have some cake. It's supermarket bought, but that's the best kind. Chemical goodness. Gordon looks over at Donna and he gets very serious. He says, I need to talk to you. Kim sees that he's serious. She says, okay. Gordon says, not here. And he puts the cake down and he starts to walk. And she says, yeah. And she follows him and she's instantly concerned. These two and their friendship. What a bond these two have now. And I totally believe it. And yeah, so we're going to see this conversation in the basement between Cam and Gordon. She's pretty worried. She sees the energy Gordon's got. She's not loving it. Gordon says, Donna wants to move forward with the IPO with or without you. She's soaking that in, but she sort of scoffs a little bit. She's like, oh, okay, tough titties. I don't want to, and it's my company. Gordon says, you're the plurality shareholder. You own the most, but if she gets everyone else with a stake in this company to side with her, she can overrule you. Cam hadn't thought about this. She had not considered this. This was a real oversight for Cam. And probably because I think she always thought she was in a position where she had at least one other person on her side, maybe Buzz, so that this could never happen. But it's actually the right time for Donna to make a move. And Cam's vulnerable and she knows it. So Cam hadn't thought about this. She starts doing some mental calculation. She says, okay, Doug and Craig will obviously jump at the chance to screw me. But even if she manages to convince Diane, that still leaves you and Boz. Game over. Gordon hangs his head. He says, it leaves Boz. My vote's got to be with her. Even if I'm against it. I'm sorry. And you can tell if it weren't that he were married to Donna, Gordon would probably want to back Cam up here. He's really, really torn. This is what Gordon can do. Like having this conversation with Cam is what Gordon can do to help Cam. He is doing absolutely the most he is able to do here. This friendship. Cam kind of looks upstairs towards where Donna would be in surprise. She's like, she's out there throwing me a party. And you're going to side with that lying two-faced. Gordon's like, careful. She's my wife. Cam says, lucky you. And she starts to go upstairs. Gordon's like, Cam. She goes upstairs. She walks back out to the party. She sees Donna, her face. It's all over Cam's face. Donna sees that. She loses her own smile. And Cam is going to walk over to Boz and Diane, who are laughing with each other. And it's awkward between Cam and Boz right now. Boz is just finishing something. He's like, yeah, there's just Diane sees him and she's like, Cameron. She says, congratulations. I'm so happy for the two of you. Cam says very offhandedly to Diane, like, yeah, thanks. She looks at Boz. She says, can I borrow you? Boz shrugs. They walk away together. Boz looks back at Diane. What a position Boz is in here. Because the last time that Boz and Cam have interacted directly with each other was in the car in Texas, in that heated conversation. And yeah, they've had a meeting since then, but they avoided each other in the meeting. And now, now Boz has this information about what Donna's trying to do. Boz looks back at Diane. It's like, what do I do from here? Gordon comes back out to the party. He can't look at anybody. Before we see where this is going to go, we're going to see Ryan making a call to Joe in a way that kind of looks untraceable. And Joe says, hello. Ryan says, I have to ask you something and I need you to be completely honest with me because I don't know what to believe anymore. So don't lie to me, okay? This is an energy that he's never approached Joe with. So we're now going to actually see Joe. Joe says, what do you want to ask me? Ryan says, did you plan this whole thing with Gordon? Are you moving forward with NSFNet and cutting me out? Joe says, no, of course not. Where did you get an idea like that? Ryan hangs up abruptly. Joe was not expecting that. Joe honestly, like, could not have imagined. Joe doesn't know Ryan. Joe doesn't know somebody with like a heart as pure as Ryan here. So Ryan's trying to decide like who's manipulating me. And really, nobody's actually manipulating him. It's just everybody is looking at this from their own viewpoint, and to everybody, this looks a different way. And Ryan doesn't know what to make sense of this all with. Like, he doesn't know how to process all of this information. But Joe says, no, of course not. It seems like Ryan believes that very wholesale. So he hangs up and he looks at the Ryan looks at Forbes magazine, the one with Joe on the cover where it says free or fraud. He then looks at the administrator side of NSFNet. The phone rings. It's Joe probably calling him back to try to figure out what's happening with Ryan. Ryan not only doesn't answer, he unplugs it and he starts typing. Ryan has made a decision. Probably a bad one. Okay, we're going to see Boz and Cam in Boz's office. This conversation breaks my heart. My heart. This is an example of a conversation between characters where there's so much tension, but I feel a connection between these people that is so strong. Cam is panicked. They can barely look at each other when they get into Boz's office. Cam says, I need something from you. And I know things have been super awkward between us since we got back from Texas. I should have said something, but I didn't. I mean, you didn't either, but that's not the point right now. The point is, I know it's not cool to ask for something when there's this other thing between us, but I really, really need your help right now. Best possible way to start this conversation for Cam. It is so interesting to see the moments when Cam has emotional maturity and the moments when she does not. And in this moment, this is if I could have been giving advice to Cam and saying, here's what to say when you walk into Boz's office, this is what I would tell her to start with. Boz is just looking down. He can't even look at her. He says, when were you going to tell me? She says, Boz, I just found out myself. I didn't know Donna was going to try to end run around me. He's still looking down. He says, about your marriage. And she looks absolutely crestfallen. She's like, oh. Now remember, when she told Gordon and Gordon told Donna, Donna came to her saying, congratulations, this is amazing. We should celebrate. And it brought them back together. Donna offered to do a dinner with Tom and Cam, a double date dinner with Tom and Cam. She offered to throw Cam a party. This was the route to repairing, seemingly, that relationship. It had a completely different effect on Boz. Boz found out about this from somebody else and is broken up that Cam did not. It goes beyond the fact that Cam didn't tell him. Let's go a little further into this conversation. Boz says, look, Cam, I know you don't think of me as a father. You made that clear. That's okay. You're going to feel the way you want to feel, but it won't stop me from thinking of you as a daughter. I mean, if Boz were her father and Tom was a traditional person, maybe Tom would be talking to Boz about asking permission for Cam's hand in marriage. It's too much to think for Boz to think that that would happen in this situation. There are too many leaps here. He's not actually her dad, but at the very least, he might want to be there to like walk her down the aisle, or at least just know. because this was bigger than their fight. But by not telling him, it was really reinforcing that she doesn't think of him as a father figure. It hurt him so much, not like before she can talk about the stuff with Donna, she has to deal with this. And the thing is, like, he's so broken up about not knowing that they were getting married. He says, you're going to feel the way you want to feel, but it won't stop me from thinking of you as a daughter. And you can see Cam's heart breaking a little bit. And she pauses and she says, so tell me what to do. And Boz takes a minute to give her professional advice. And it's a very genuine moment. Like, he said the thing he needed to say. He says, first off, don't make this thing with Donna any bigger than it is. She's wide-eyed. She's listening. She nods. She's absorbing this. She's going to use his advice. He sits down. He says, you two have a difference of opinion. That's all. Well, she sits and then he sits and he looks at her. He says, the only reason why I'm here in the first place is because of you. I love you and I owe you, but it's not just your company, not anymore. You got a special kind of talent, sweetheart. But when you march to the beat of your own drum, you risk losing the band. She nods. I was tearing up watching this back. It's making me upset saying all of this. He says, lay out your vision, find a way to work with her. You two need each other. The amount of stuff he's putting on a shelf right now to say all this to her, it's making me upset. She sighs, she hears all this, she nods. This advice is coming from a very genuine place. We're going to see her try to execute it in a minute. He looks down again, though, because that was the professional advice, but now he's back to feeling like absolute crap because she didn't tell him about her marriage. They pause for a second, and Cam, with a very quiet voice, says, hey, Boz. And he looks up at her. And she says, I got married. In such like a sweet, like little girl voice. Not a little girl voice, but just a sweet, innocent voice. And she actually shows her ring like this time. It's not this, but it's this. Perhaps the most normal way of showing a ring we've seen to this point. And he smiles and he laughs a little bit and he says, congratulations. And she cannot go back. She can't go back in time and tell Boz that she was getting married. But she could at least give him this little moment, this moment of her giving him the reveal. Despite everything, they can at least have this little section of time, right? Where she can say, you know, this is probably the most genuine her reveal has been. I mean, you know, with Gordon, it was sort of, I got married, and she was excited, but she was also hoping that he'd tell Donna. You know, this is very much like she's not using her wedding, her marriage as a tool. She is just telling Boz because she's happy to give him the news. And I think it kind of puts them back on the same footing here. Okay, we're going to see Ryan typing. He's logged in as Robin Hood. He's doing, look, I don't read code, but here's what I'm able to see from what I'm seeing here. He's retrieving the Macmillan directory, the Macmillan utility directory listing. He opens the source code for Macmillan utility. He hits enter and he exhales. He unplugs the computer. He dismantles the computer. He's working very quickly. Part of the way that we can see that he's working very quickly is that the editor was taking out like moments, like frames. So it makes it sort of almost look like the action is being speeded up, but it's not really. He throws the hard drive, I think, into a trash can outside and he lights it on fire. So whatever he did, I have every reason to believe is horrible. Like, not knowing anything about any of this. I have many reasons to think this is full of red flags. which is just great storytelling, because if you know a lot about tech, I'm going to need some serious explanations from you coming up shortly, like in the next scene we get with Ryan. But I, at least as somebody who knows nothing about this, know enough to be able to say, oh, he's doing some things that he probably shouldn't be doing, and he's doing them thinking he's making good choices. Okay, let's go into the meeting room at Mutiny. Actually, it's, I think, Boz's office still with that conference table. And Donna is going to enter the room. Cam and Boz are already in there. Diane and Gordon are also waiting behind Donna to come into the room. This next scene goes for over 7 minutes. It is so intense. There are some very interesting choices in terms of camera work. And it is just pure, like, this is a culmination. This is a coming to a head of a lot of stuff. Donna is like, you do realize there's a party going on out there for you, right? This can't wait. Cam says, no, please sit down. Donna, Diana, and Gordon come in. They're going to sit. Cam closes the door. She's going to stand at the head of the table. So the way the setup is here, we've got Cameron standing at the head of the table. On either side, the two people next to her are Boz and Gordon. Next to Boz is Diane. Next to Gordon is Donna. The rest of them are seated. Cam is standing. Cam says, I've had some concerns about Mutiny's direction, concerns that I haven't effectively expressed. That's on me. Things are moving fast, faster than I ever imagined they would. It's an exciting time, but we're at a crossroads and we have a decision to make together. Donna is looking at Diane. She's like, I know you all want to move forward on the IPO. I do too, but I don't think rushing into it is in our best interests. Cam, once again, if I were giving a Cam advice on how to start this meeting, this is how I would probably script this for her. She's off to a good start in terms of emotional maturity and effectiveness. It's going to go sideways. I'm curious who we think makes this personal first. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that. But for now, she's starting it correctly. Now, of course, Donna is going to interrupt this. She's not going to take this lying down. She raises her hand. She says, can I say a quick word? Cam says, mm-hmm. She sits. She's at the head of the table still. And by the way, when this scene starts, as everybody's filing into the room, the camera's sort of at the ceiling, kind of pointed down at all of them. And then it starts dropping down. So we're at their level in the room. So we're gonna, that's one effect that we're getting here. Now, so Cam has she sits down, and at this point we start getting over the shoulder shots, mostly between Cam and Donna. So we'll see over Cam's shoulder looking at Donna, we'll see over Donna's shoulder looking at Cam. And I think the effect that has in this part, all the way up through when Cam shuts the door, is that it kind of at least a little makes them seem like they're in the same room. That there's maybe a way to bridge this gap, and there's going to be a point when we stop seeing that camera choice. And to me, that's when they're saying, this is it between them. For now, maybe there's a chance. Maybe they're still having a conversation with each other. Donna says, the company is valued for what it is and does right now. The market likes Mutiny, but in a year or two, or however long it takes to implement the changes you have in mind, who knows? We can't count on tomorrow's landscape looking like today's. Cam says, Mutiny isn't sustainable as it exists now. Our whole user base is tied to the Commodore 64. We need to diversify to other platforms in order to grow. Boz is nodding. At the moment when she mentions the Commodore 64, Boz nods to Diane on this. And Boz may be remembering that this was on Joe's list of changes that he wanted to make. And if you remember, When in 10 Broad 36, Joe presented the list of changes to Mutiny that he wanted for Mutiny to be able to get the lower rate to use their server, the whole team was like, how do we trick Joe into thinking that we've made these changes? And Boz said, is there any chance it would make Mutiny better to make these changes? And here we are. And the Commodore 64 is the thing Cam brings up here, and Boz probably remembers that. So he looks over at Diane, kind of nods at her, but Diane is motionless. She's just listening. Cam says, we need to diversify to other platforms in order to grow. And isn't that what Wall Street likes? Growth. She directs that to Diane. Diane nods. The kind of investment that I'm talking about in time and money will pay off, and smart investors will see that. Donna is a little bit more urgent here now. She says, your ideas are good, Cameron, and some of them are even great. And I want to explore them with you, all of them. Cam starts to panic a little bit because she thought like presenting this well might make them all see her points. But Donna's going to keep pushing back. So she starts panicking a little bit. And she's like, Donna says, but why can't we do that after we've gone public? We don't have to wait to try to make something perfect. Perfect is the enemy of good, and Mutiny is very, very good right now as it is. Their tenor is sort of, they're both getting a little bit more urgent. Cam says, Donna, have you been on Swap Meet lately? It's like an 8-bit mall. It's lost what made it a community. We need to make it feel alive again, or people are going to leave and we'll just be hosting a bunch of tacky businesses selling junk to nobody. It's funny because Cam's the one trying to preserve the integrity of Donna's idea to begin with. Donna says, but Cam slams both hands onto the table. So she's starting to get heated, but I think she realizes she's getting too heated. She slams her hands on the table and then she just sort of pats one of them like a little softer. Like, I need to take it down myself a little bit here. She says, please, we can't afford to be naive here. If we put off these changes, we won't be able to make them the right way. Donna says, you mean your way? Which might be true. Cam says, I mean, we'll be so focused on PE ratios and shareholder value that we won't be able to innovate and respond quickly. She says it with a little bit of fear of this next part. She says, Mutiny won't be Mutiny anymore. We'll lose the company's soul. Donna kind of looks up. She's like, this soul stuff again. Like, it would be Cam's fear. That is very consistent for Cameron from season 1 to now. But Donna's like, if I hear this soul stuff one more time, Donna, so Boz and Diane's head sort of swivel back to Donna. Like there's just like a tennis match happening here. Donna says, say we do it your way. What happens if your ideas, good as they are, don't work or backfire? We risk losing our current valuation. Going public doesn't mean we stop innovating. We can continue to experiment and improve as we go, especially with someone as brilliant as you leading the way. Cam says, don't patronize me. Donna says, I'm not patronizing you. Cam says, you're handling me like you always do, and I'm sick of it. She directs this part to Boz and Diane. She says, I'm trying to explain some very real risks that you're not willing to acknowledge to actual stakeholders in the company. We can't afford to be impulsive here. Donna says, you're calling me impulsive? Wow. Who made it personal? Was it already personal and it just needed to be called out? I don't know. I want to say when Donna says, you're calling me impulsive, that is taking it personal, because was Cam really calling her impulsive? Like the choice to go IPO right then, she was saying, I think was impulsive, but maybe she meant to load it with that. The way Donna says, you're calling me impulsive, with the emphasis on the me, now becomes a dig at Cam for sure. Where exactly did this go unretrievable? I think that was it, but I'm curious to get people's thoughts on this. Cam says, what's that supposed to mean? Donna nods to the outside. She says, I think people out there are celebrating what that means. Okay. Donna's really, Kim says, oh, you mean that bullshit little party you threw to distract me from getting stabbed in the back? Donna scoffs a bit. Gordon sort of is gesturing to them to simmer it down. He's like, hey. Diane says, okay, ladies, I think we're getting off track here. Cam says, Diane, it's mostly your thoughts coming out of her mouth, so I can't imagine what you have to add to the discussion. Donna says, Jesus, I don't know who should be more insulted. Trust me, if I'm expressing an opinion, it's because I believe it. Cam says with passion, she says, I should trust you. Yes, of course. I mean, unless you're lying now, like you lied about Doug and Craig. Okay, that's like a little card she had to pull out, because she Donna and Cam addressed that internally, but that isn't known widely. Donna sort of rolls her eyes and sits back like, damn it. Cam says to Diane, did you know about that? That when you told her it was fine if I fired them, she told me that I had to keep them on. Diane's just taking all of this in. A lot of information is coming out here. Cam says, is that the sort of person that you want to trust with this business going forward? Donna says, you mean the kind of person who actually tries to make things work instead of fighting with anybody who threatens her savior complex? Cam says, I get along fine with people. Donna says, you alienate everybody. Cam shouts, and now this is where I think Cam hasn't not taken it personal yet. I think she's said things that can be interpreted in a way. But I think this is where she says something that goes really below the belt for sure, where Cam says the woman that will take any excuse not to go home to her husband. Gordon holds up a hand. He says, hey. Donna, with great bitterness, says, why don't we see if your marriage lasts the year before you start doling out relationship advice? Gordon's like, Donna. Boz jumps in. He says, enough. Donna and Cam are glaring at each other. This is tense. He says, this meeting is over. All right. He gets up. He walks over to open the door. He opens the door. He says, my God, you two go to your corners, wipe the blood off your mouths, and we'll revisit. He gets cut off because as he's saying this, Cam has gotten up herself. She storms over to the door, and she now interrupts him by slamming the door shut from inside. Nobody is leaving this room. Everybody outside at the party hears the slamming of the door, and they're all like, oh my God. And they freeze, and they're hearing all of this. I don't know how much of this they're hearing. They probably are hearing a lot of it. Tom looks at the door like, oh my God. I think Tom, more than anybody else in that room, probably has a very good sense of how much tension there is between Cam and Donna. Really interesting camera choice here. So Cam has just interrupted Boz by slamming the door. We are going to see, it looks like a handheld camera moment, a very quick push in on her face. Oh, that was quicker than it was. It was a very quick push in on her face. It's a little horror movie-esque. It's just this one moment. And it's, she says, this gets decided tonight. It is a really interesting choice. And it did remind me of like a scary movie. This marks the end of the over-the-shoulder shots. It's like the camera telling us there's a point of no return here. These two women they can't be in the same room together even. Like we can't even show them in the same room together. We just have to show them separately one at a time. Diane gets uncomfortable. We see some switching of position here. Gordon gets up from his seat to sit at the window against sort of like the main room. Cam says, I want to vote and I want it clean. Boz, he walks back to stand behind the chair he had been sitting in. She says, if you all decide with Donna, then you can go ahead and do the IPO without me. I quit. Yeah, Gordon's like, Cameron, come on. Cam shouts, she's almost crying. She says, no, I'm sick of this. Go take a hard look at this company and ask yourself who made it what it is and who's just been along for the ride. Donna sits back. She's with like a calm anger that's creepy. Boss says, Cameron, please don't do this. Donna snipes back. Her voice is shaking with her anger. She says, you want it, you got it, but I will not sit by and watch this company die because it's being held hostage by a petulant child. If we don't move forward with the IPO, then you can steer this ship into the rocks yourself because I am out of here. Diane's like, okay, Boz is right. Let's take a beat, cool off. This is too late, Diane, too late. Donna says, show of hands, who's in favor of doing the IPO now with all that that entails? Donna raises her hand high. Cam is tearing up a bit as she looks at Donna. Well, she's tearing up a bit and she looks at Diane. We're going to see a shot from behind Diane where Diane raises her hand. And then Cam and Gordon look at each other. Cam is on one side of Diane's hand and Gordon's on the other side of Diane's hand. And then we switch over and Gordon very reluctantly raises his hand. He looks at Donna first. He raises his hand. He's under great duress. And I think if you're Donna in that moment, yes, he raised his hand, but he's obviously in duress. It's not full emotional support. She also probably knows that he told Cam about all this, which is why this meeting is happening right now. Cam is tearing up as she sees that from Gordon, and then she looks at Boz. She turns her head slowly to Boz, and Boz is devastated. He says, you're breaking my goddamn heart. And him just saying that devastates Cam. He raises his hand in the air. Her eyes are welling up with tears. Her lips are quivering. She says, oh, she's gasping for air. They all sit silently. She sniffles. She opens the door. Donna looks at Gordon and he just shakes his head no at her. And she almost rolls her eyes back like, oh God. He cannot with her. He, he betrayed Donna, and in any other situation, I'd be like, he betrayed Donna, and Donna's would be right to feel bad about that. He morally is not on board with what happened here. And I don't know if he'll be able to recover from this with Donna. He sided with her, but this is a real Pyrrhic victory for Donna in her marriage with Gordon, I think, because it's like what he just saw from Donna. There's no unseeing it. If I think about how Gordon has handled everything in this episode, if I were in Gordon's position, I wish I would do all the same things. Like, I just think I like how Gordon handled all these things. If I were Donna, I wouldn't. Dawn is off the rails right now. Like, I think there was always at least one option here of saying, can we do some of the things in 3 months, or picking a time frame and saying how many of these, what are the most important things and how many of them can we do? Or can we throw a little extra budget, hire a couple more people to come on board for the next 3 months to get the X number of things done so that we can go IPO and make those returns? I feel like there was a whole gray area of even just at that. And I know nothing about this, but that is something that I can bring to this with how I would look at compromise, to say anybody in the room could have suggested any one of those options. And there may be more things that they could have done to find a middle ground, and they didn't try. Nobody in that room actually presented a middle ground. And again, these two have been at odds for a while, and cinematically this needs to come to a head. And maybe they just don't even want to be on the same page. So I think all of that can be true, right? But was there middle ground here? There probably was some things. There were probably things to explore. Cam walks out of the office or out of that meeting room. She sees everybody at the party staring at her just silently. Tom is looking at her. There's this eerie music. She's crying. She's slumped over. She very slowly walks down the stairs. Tom steps forward to sort of save the day. She very slowly walks to Tom. He takes her hand. They leave together. There is just silence by everybody else in the main room. What a scene. This goes for over 7 minutes, this whole sequence. It's a large percentage of the episode. What a payoff there's been to all the tension we've seen between Donna and Cam. But then you look at all the other things that are happening. There's tension between Gordon and Donna. There's friendship between Gordon and Cam. There's this new relationship between Diane and Boz, and they're trying to figure out how to make that work. And I think that has a lot to do with Boz's vote here. Boz and Cam, it's like one of the most heartfelt relationships in the show. They had deeply hurt each other some episodes back. They had a really, for me, very moving reconciliation, but now this, but it's coming from a very heartfelt place. Oh my goodness. I just, there's so much happening in this room and it all matters. And look, I think if you're brand new to this show, if you haven't seen what happens beyond this, I think it's fair to say that everything that we saw in this episode is a setup for something, right? The Ryan stuff, it's all like, obviously there's going to be fallout from stuff that's happening in this episode. But this board meeting is also fallout. It's like fallout that lasts forever. Oh man, it is so good. The acting is so good. The camera choices are so good. The blocking of this is so interesting. I wonder how many different ways they played this scene, because there's probably a lot of different ways. This show is so good. I can't with this. Okay. I'll keep moving. So now, what is Gordon's takeaway from all of this? Because he's going to have one, and I love the one he has. Gordon is now sitting in a hallway. He's on the floor in this hallway. Where is he in this hallway with the fluorescent lighting? He's rubbing his temples. It's like, oh, what's just happened to my life? Joe walks up. This is interesting. Gordon's like, Joe, what are you doing here? So he wasn't expecting him. Joe says, someone had to drop off the keys. He's going to open the door, and they're in the server room at McMillan Utility. They're going to walk in together. You know, this is probably exactly the same server room that they used at West Group, but reconfigured, or they just are shooting it differently, so it looks different. So they walk into this room together. Joe says, welcome to your empire. They're both going to walk up closer to the camera and sort of stand in front of the camera. And he says, and thus concludes the grand tour. I mean, really, how much of a tour does Gordon really need? Joe's he's holding a key ring full of keys. And he's like, all right, pay attention. This is complicated. It's funny. He says, okay, this key is for the building. This key is for the ladies' room. This is for the men's bathroom. And those two are for the front door. This room is really cool. They're bathed in a blue light. And particularly, there's a moment when the camera shoots sort of up at Gordon and his hair is sort of a halo of blue. It's pretty cool. Joe hands him the keys and he starts walking away. And Gordon says, thanks. Joe says, if it wasn't going to be me, I'm glad it was you. Write me from the future. Because he's handed over, like, Gordon figured out the NSF net stuff. Joe knows it. And it's like, ah, damn it. That was the idea. That was the thing. He's all right. Well, Gordon, it's yours. Gordon is looking at the key and he says to Joe, 49%. Joe turns back. He's like, what? Gordon says, come run it with me. And 49% of the company is yours. Joe says, that's a cruel joke and quite frankly beneath you. Gordon's not messing around. He's just not. Joe sees that instantly. Gordon's like, I'm serious. He throws the key back to Joe, who's kind of amazed at this because Joe doesn't know where this is coming from. The last time he encountered Gordon, Gordon was walking around his apartment, sitting, holding up art pieces and sitting on his couch and like just having the run of the place. This is a different Gordon energy that he's getting, and he has no idea why. We know why, and we know how serious Gordon is about this, and Joe can see that. Gordon says, I'm serious, 49%. Joe nods. Joe nods. He says, with how this looks, we need to be smart. I should be a silent partner. Gordon nods and he smiles. He says, even better. Joe smiles and he laughs, and it's genuine. And I feel like they're starting from a good footing. Whatever they're about to do, Gordon has good intentions. And why does he have good intentions? Because first of all, Joe did offer him partnership twice and he rejected it twice. He's offering Joe partnership, and he is coming from a place of, I have now seen what it looks like when people abuse each other, when people do not value each other. Yes, 49% to Joe because he's not going to be stupid about this and he sees how important percentages really are. And by the way, the one thing that does sort of bother me about the boardroom scene is that we never actually get Doug and Craig to vote. Maybe that was a foregone conclusion, but is it really official? I don't know. I'm not sure quite what a percentage everybody else in the room had, but I can't assume that Doug and Craig's vote was inconsequential. Anyway, back to this scene. So, Joe can acknowledge, like, everybody who's looking at this situation that just transpired with Joe at Macmillan Utility would see this in a certain way. He knows why Ken sees it the way he sees it, why that lawyer sees it the way he sees it. He probably can see why Ryan got freaked out. Gordon and him are now on the same page. And Joe being a silent partner probably does make things a little bit easier for them. So there's that. But yeah, Gordon wants a healthy partnership. He does not want to recreate what he just saw between Cam and Donna. He wants to do right by Joe. I think he is willing to see that he rejected Joe's offer of partnership twice, and he wants to start over. And Joe's acceptance appears to be wholehearted. Joe just wants to be part of the future. Like, he thinks that this is a really good idea, and so does Gordon. And so it's like, you know what? A good idea needs to be pursued by the people who believe in it, and that's what they're doing. Okay, unfortunately now, we have to see what's happening between Joe and Ryan. Joe is holding the key for Macmillan Utility, or Citadel Utility. I don't know. What are they going to call it now? This new place. He knocks on Ryan's door. Going to go back over Ryan's threshold here. He's smiling because he's so excited to share this news with Ryan. Ryan opens the door. He lets Joe in. Ryan hasn't shaved or slept in a minute. Joe has no idea what he's about to walk into. Ryan's like, Joe. Joe comes in happily. He's beaming. He's taking bounding steps. Ryan, today is a big day for us. Ryan says, so you've seen it already. He's peering outside. He has really paranoid energy right now. Joe says, seen what? Ryan shuts the door real quick. Ryan says, so then you don't know. I released the source code for Macmillan Utilities security software to the public. Joe says, what are you talking about? Ryan says, it's free, Joe, really free, like we always wanted. People can tinker with it. They can make it better or worse. That could happen too. The point is, Macmillan Utility can no longer profit off of it. Joe says, but that's illegal. Ryan is talking fast. He says, and I released documents to the media proving that Macmillan Utility was totally on board with charging the public for 2.0 all along. Joe he's just trying to steady himself as he hears all this. And they only went after you when you tried to stop them. Joe is walking into the next room and he's looking back. Ryan's like, yeah, and it shows that they weren't trying to protect the people or keep them safe. They were just trying to exploit them. And I laid out for the media how you lost your job defending your ideals. Ryan says this. He's on his own couch. He's hunched over a chessboard. It's on his coffee table. He's sitting back. He's very proud of himself. He's just protected Joe's honor in his mind. Joe is shocked. He says, do you have any idea what you've done? Ryan is very proud of himself. He says, yes, I returned volley just like you wanted. It's going to take those bastards years to recover. Joe says, they're going to come after you. Ryan says, I'm not stupid, Joe. I covered every conceivable track. They'll never catch me. I am that good. The camera is now pointed. Karen Kusawa did a killer job directing this episode. The camera, we're going to see Joe's hand in frame. Sort of, the camera is down low from behind, sort of it's at his back of his legs, but we can see centered into the frame his hand, blurry, and like Ryan behind it on the couch. There's quite a distance between them, but that's the way that this shot is set up, and it's going to matter in a second. So the camera is positioned there. We then look at Joe again. He grimaces a bit when Ryan says, I'm that good. Joe says, nobody's that good. Ryan proudly says, I am. Now we're going to go back to that shot that we just saw, but this time Joe's hand in frame comes into focus. We see that he's loosely holding the key. And we're going to watch him put the key back in his pocket. He can't give Ryan the keys to Macmillan Utility or Citadel Utility or whatever this place is now. Joe says, yeah, we'll see. He walks out of the room. He's sort of rubbing his facial hair. He leaves the apartment, goes back over the threshold. I would really appreciate somebody who fully understands the ramifications of what Ryan just did to explain them to me. Please feel free to go into the comments and tell me what Ryan just did. Because this company, so Ryan released the source code for Macmillan Utility, but Macmillan Utility, does that exist anymore? They stripped Joe's name out of it. They're putting Citadel Utility up on the wall. What was it? A corporation. Can Macmillan Utility still, can they sue? Right? Like, is it a copyright law? Is it intellectual property law? What did Ryan do exactly? I have a general sense that he should not have shared this information publicly. But does the entity that made it exist, and wasn't it Gordon's code? And if Gordon now owns the company, is it Gordon's somebody explain it. I get that he shouldn't have shared it. The show has made that very clear to me, and I'm wondering exactly what law he just broke. So there's that. But here's the thing. Ryan obviously knows that he did something super sketchy. He signed in as Robin Hood. He is hiding in his home. He hasn't shaved or slept. He was looking out the door suspiciously, like there could be people searching for him. He knows he did something sketchy, obviously something illegal. But the way he explains this to Joe, it's like all he needed was Joe to say, Joe, Ryan, I did not plan this with Gordon. You are not cut out. You're part of this. All he needed was for Joe to reconfirm that with him. And Ryan then went out and protected Joe's honor. It was an act of tremendous loyalty. He threw himself on some sort of a sword. He's living the consequences right now. He seems to be living in a certain amount of paranoia or fear. But he's also really proud of his work, and he doesn't think people can discover that it was him. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he knows that maybe people could catch him because he's looking for those people. So, oh my goodness. I think there's some things here that happened in this episode that what's going to happen with them, right? I mean, what's going to happen with all the stuff that just happened with Mutiny? What's going to happen with Ryan? What's going to happen with Gordon and Donna? What's going to happen with Boz and Cam? I mean, I think there's all kinds of stuff. And on maybe a lighter note, what's this new partnership with Gordon and Joe going to yield? What's this new partnership with, or this new relationship with Diane and Boz going to look like? There are some things to be hopeful for, but a lot of people are not well right now. So there's that. And that is the threshold. Holy smokes, this episode. Okay. All right. Music. There's a couple songs that I noted here. One is People Going Nowhere by Crippled Pilgrims. That's from 1984 when Donna calls Cam. That interrupts the song that's playing in Cam's headphones. There's also a song called I Can't Change the World by the Rick Agnew Band. I think this is from 2016. And it's when Cam goes back to the party after Gordon tells her Donna's plans for Mutiny. And I also want to point out that there were some choices to score this with really eerie tonal music. Like, you know, this, even the end of the episode, the credits basically are silent pretty much. Like or the end credits. There's a lot of these choices to create like an eerie sounding music tone to underpin some of these scenes when it gets really heavy towards the end. All right, favorite quotes. I'm going to put 3 in here, and they're not going to be the ones you think, I would say. Got one from Cam. And then he said, I won't move to California for a girlfriend, but I would move there for my wife. Talk about a quote that tells you a lot. Gosh. A funny one from Boz. Have you heard of the Midas touch? Well, I got the opposite of that. Okay, my favorite one's from Diane. Just give me the damn flowers and stop making problems where there aren't any. I have been wanting to put this quote as a favorite quote for such a long time now. I love this quote. It's everything that you want to know about Diane in one quote. Like, let's just make peace, shall we? Which I think goes to show you how the conflict between Cam and Donna, that's not how Diane operates. She is somebody who wants to put it behind her and make better decisions. Like, are we better together or apart? Okay, then let's put this all behind us. And that is not what she's gonna witness here with Cam and Donna at all. All right, let's talk about some feedback. There's a bunch of feedback that I want to bring in here. Because while I was away, so many good pieces of feedback came in that feel relevant to this episode. And some of them I've been holding on to for a while, because I always look for when is something going to be relevant that I can really unpack an episode now with what was said before. So let's start with synthetic gerbil. Welcome back, synthetic gerbil. All right, let's start with, I've got 3 different episodes worth of feedback for synthetic gerbil. Let's start with 206. I felt really annoyed that Cameron and the crew did not just make the changes Joe asked. This was from 10 Broad 36. Boz even thinks it would be easier to do what he asked. Should Joe be entangling himself in making these demands? No. Does Cameron have every right to fight back? Yes, but I think the best way they could have showed Joe a thing or two is to do what he asked quickly and without fuss, and maybe even a little extra, because then they would have had the upper hand and could have potentially made Joe look too demanding. I think Tom had the right idea initially on how to do it quickly and efficiently, but hey, this way makes for better TV. So I wanted to bring that back in now because again, 10 Broad 36, Joe gives Donna was it 3 or 4 specific changes, benchmarks to make in order to get the hourly rate for using the West Group server down from $5 an hour to, I think he was saying $3.50 an hour. One of those things was a couple of them I don't think were relevant. Like there was like I want to have like a stock ticker and like a male feature on Mutiny. That stuff wasn't necessarily relevant, but the big one was moving multi-platform so that it wasn't just Commodore 64 or Commodores that they would be able to use Mutiny on. And so that was something he raised all the way back then. And at the time we were talking about that episode, I was saying, look, Cam could say, screw you, Joe, I'm doing none of these things, and just look somewhere else. Look for another server somewhere that they could use. She could do the changes, as Synthetic Gerbil is saying, and they could just do them as quickly as they can and just get it done. Or they chose option 3, which was the great heist, trying to convince Joe that they actually made the changes. And if you remember at the time, Boz was like, wouldn't it just be like, would it be better if you actually made these changes? Would it make Mutiny better? And now looking back, if they had made that change from Commodores to multi-platform before, it was just one less thing that they would have needed, that would have been on Cam's list now. And that was a really big one. It was the top of Cam's list. So, not only does it make for interesting TV in 206, where we see like the whole Ocean's 11-y heist play out, but it brings things to a head again here in 307. So I'm really glad you raised that back then, Synthetic Gerbil. Glad I'm able to bring that back in now. Now let's talk about something Synthetic Gerbil said about 303. One other thing that I love about this episode, and also love about the direction the show takes from here with the forming of Gordon and Cameron's friendship. These 2 characters have been at odds over and over 2 seasons, and often in very hurtful ways. You see this friendship briefly spark in the episode before Comdex, but that's it. And they really shouldn't be at odds because they're very much the same in a lot of ways, and often serve the same role in the show, but maybe the opposite side of the coin, if that makes sense. But it's absolutely heartwarming to see Gordon sincerely talk to Cam in an honest way, no sarcasm at certain points in this episode. While the rift between Donna and the 2 widens here, some of my favorite scenes happen because of Gordon and Cam just being 2 friends having real conversations with each other and also having fun sometimes too. Yeah, we've seen some good moments between them, especially over playing Super Mario Brothers. And then, Gordon's reveal about his illness and how seriously that impacted Cam. These 2 have developed an honest friendship, bonding over the ham radio. They've developed an honest friendship. It feels very earned to me. We did see the shades of this first start in 108, where, it was Gordon's like sort of hero episode, really trying to get the band back together to go to Comdex, and the first person he approached was Cameron, and they really gel in that episode. But a lot happens after Comdex, Sonaris and all of that. But look where they are now. And the friendship is so strong and so true and so believable for me that, you know, when I see Gordon really struggling morally with what Donna's about to do with Cameron and deciding to give Cameron a heads up, and telling her, I have to vote with Donna. I don't want to vote with Donna, but I have to vote with Donna. And she gets that. And I don't know that I think coming out of this, I don't think she's necessarily going to hold that against Gordon. I don't know how Cam's going to feel about what Boz did. But Gordon, damn it, he did the best he could. And it really came from a place of not wanting to hurt Cam. He has a respect for Cam. And I don't know if Gordon actually saw the changes that Cam had proposed. But when I look at the changes that Cam had proposed, they look very sound based on how things have evolved in today's age. Like the things that we value in terms of making things more user-friendly, Cam was proposing them back then. So he probably thought some of the ideas were good if he saw any of them. Okay, one more comment from Synthetic Gerbil about 305. I'm on Cam's side this whole season for pretty much everything, but her not showing up to work or calling is extremely bewildering and frustrating while she was in Texas, being MIA and not calling. Did she think because of the emotional backlash she felt with the situation with Boz and her reconnection with Tom that she was going to blow off work and not vocalize that she needed the time off? Or did she just forget? I get that it was sometimes hard to figure out where people were pre-World Wide Web or cell phones, but Cam could have picked up any phone and let someone know during mutiny business hours what she was up to, or that she just needed time to refresh. I don't know. Now that I typed that out, maybe Cam had a fear of calling in the office because she promised they would talk Monday, and Cam felt like she cannot show her face at this point to anyone there without showing up with new code and a good idea. I'm so torn because I know that feeling too. Let's talk about that, because it is a weird choice for Cam to go off of the grid and not even say, I'm going to be gone longer than Monday. But it made me think, and Synthetic Gerbil and I started to explore this a little bit more. Have there been other situations where Cam needed to process something and went off of the grid to do it internally? Because I feel like we've gotten these moments, her going to a rooftop to have a panic attack, her going off with Judy and Ajax in season 1, trying to figure out how to get through her mental block. Even, you know, in season 1, getting out of her clean room and going into the storage area and creating a space for herself there. And then disappearing when the guys from IBM had tried to offer her a job, and she disappears, and Joe and Gordon think, oh, maybe she, you know, did something illegal with the, you know, the IBM BIOS information. Maybe she read it, or like she's gone off before. I don't know if it was necessarily for as long as she did here, but I guess she does have a tendency to go so internal when she's thinking and when she's processing that she just disappears. And I don't know if she even processes that there are people waiting on her, or that if she just said, I'll be back on Friday, like, if she just gave it a minute to say that, she might resolve all the conflict that was brewing from her being gone. But I don't know if she even considers it. Maybe she's so busy thinking about how to solve the problem that she's like, they'll be happy when I get back and I have a fix. Not realizing that if she just told them, she could still have that time. Or maybe they'd fight her on taking the time to come up with that fix. She just wants to come back with a solution, and then she'll be a hero, instead of having to explain away their disappointment of her being gone. I don't know. That's kind of what initially is coming to mind. It doesn't seem like it would be hard. I don't think it's a tech issue. I think she could have made a call if she wanted to. She could have found a way to contact the team or Donna directly. She just didn't, and just stayed missing. And I'm not sure it's a completely new thing for her. All right, we have a comment from Vanya9311, who, so good to hear from you. And I know that these episodes coming up are really fun ones for Vanya9311, who says, no, Donna, mutiny isn't just my job. It's who I am. It's who I am too. I couldn't sleep all week. I couldn't ignore the mountain of complaints in my inbox, but I care too much. Vanya writes, God, this exchange. I've been looking forward to this episode since you started season 3. For me, Yerba Buena is the episode that kind of changes the game in season 3. The first 4 episodes were good, but this episode and the next ones are on another level. So this was a comment to 305, but according to Vanya9311, if you're new to this show, get ready, buckle up. Season 3 is going to be off the hook from here on out. Look, I think season 3 was already awesome. I think I hesitate to name a single episode of this show that I don't like. I like all of them. I do think somehow it gets stronger and stronger and stronger as it goes. And I do agree that I think there's so many episodes I'm looking forward to coming up, and everything coming up in season 3 is going to be amazing in different ways, by the way. So thank you for jumping in, Vanya9311. Frack and Toaster Lava, who has been, boy, did I get a lot of good feedback from Frack and Toaster Lover over the last few weeks. And I'm hanging on to so many different comments, trying to find the right places to bring them back up again. So I've got a couple episodes worth of comments here that I wanted to bring in. First, from 207. I love this episode. It's so interesting for Cameron and Joe in particular. Cameron's big speech to the mutiny guys was such a Joe McMillan moment. Pause. This is from Working for the Clampdown. If you remember, this is one where Joe has made the offer to buy mutiny. She gets people to shout him out of the room. She tears up the offer. She's standing on a table. She throws it all over the place. By the end of the episode, she's like, this is my company. This is the episode. So Frack and Toaster Lover is saying, I love this episode. So interesting for Cameron and Joe in particular. Cameron's big speech to the mutiny guys was such a Joe McMillan moment. We have indeed never seen her before give a big manipulative speech that gets people riled up. And she even made an overdramatic gesture, tearing up the contract, kind of like burning the BIOS book that Joe did. At the beginning of the season, she said she didn't want to be the boss, but she has increasingly been acting just like one. It's not a democracy as she thought she wanted it to be. Bodhi was fully right to get angry at how she convinced them that they were equal partners when they were clearly not, and how she hoodwinked them into not even learning the terms of the contract. It has been really interesting to see Cam try to be a leader, hasn't it? Frack and Toaster Lover, I'm in agreement with you. This was such an interesting thing to see in that episode. And now, when you fast forward to 307, a whole season later, Cam, was she ever meant to be a boss? I mean, was she ever meant to be like the leader of the company? Was she ever meant to be a partner as a leader in the company? She gives a couple speeches in this episode that I think are real growth speeches for her. I'm very impressed with how she approached Boz. I'm very impressed with how she started the board meeting. I'm very impressed that as much as when Gordon tells her what Donna's up to, she could have had it out with Donna, but she listens to Boz's advice. She listens to Gordon's advice, and she tries to start the meeting productively. And yes, it goes sideways. But for a good long stretch in there, for the first couple minutes, she's really trying. When Donna asks for the floor, she gives her the floor, and she's not finicky about it. She's trying to present her case. I like that she was doing that. It does get personal. It doesn't stay that way forever. And Cameron has had the refrain for many episodes now of "this is my company," and she's been saying it to Donna. And Donna's had absolutely enough. She has heard it for the last time. She's not doing that anymore. And she warned Cameron about that a very long time ago, way back in season 2. Don't you use that on me. Like, if you use this, if you make decisions unilaterally on me again, we're done. She said that a season ago. So I think it is interesting to see these moments when Cam sort of like tries to figure out how to be the leader, how to make the speech, how to be the big boss. She's only got so many people that she can look at for examples of how to do that. And so you can see the shades of Joe, you can see the shades of Boz, you can see like these little pieces that she's been pulling from people, and she tries to put it together, but the patchwork just got her ousted from her own company. And is that the wrong outcome? I don't know. I'm heartbroken for her. She started mutiny. But maybe the framework of what she was doing wasn't the right thing for her. I don't know. I'm heartbroken for her. All right, 208. Frack and Toaster Lover wants to share some comments about 208, the limbo episode. First, about the best thing that happened in this episode was Cameron finally recognizing and admitting how good and important community was, and telling that to Donna, resolving the disagreements they were having through season 2. Donna was having a very good time in this episode before the disaster struck, getting more professional recognition than ever, both from users at the party and from Cam later. The most frustrating thing about season 2, Cameron, for me, was how long she kept ignoring community and insisting that it's only games that were worthy of focusing on. At moments, it felt quite insular and gatekeepy. The comments about housewives exchanging recipes in 207 was the low point. This was different from season 1 Cameron, who wanted to reach people with her operating system, including people without particular technical knowledge. Was she really against community just because it wasn't her idea, as Donna said, or was it a symptom of season 2 Cameron being less open to different ideas in general and to the connections in general, except with people she saw as very similar to herself, such as her circle of coders, who were also not her equals, as she was the boss and owns 90% of Muni. The reason I wanted to bring this back in, it's such a good comment, such a good thing to pick out from that episode. And I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the fact that the changes, it's really important at the beginning of this episode that we see Cam have an experience with swap meet, where she goes in to have a chat with people, and they say, if you're not here to buy stuff, what are you here for? They're not there to have a chat. They're not there to relate and connect with each other at all. They're just to have the transaction, and it catches her off guard. She doesn't like that. And Donna, somewhere along the way, stopped noticing that that's what swap meet became. She hasn't been looking at the platform recently. She fought so hard for community. She really, really worked on Cam to get Cam to believe in and keep community and invest in the idea of community, and let Lev work on community with her. She was excited about the chat rooms. She was excited about having more chat rooms and more conversations. She believed in the bonding experience of it all. She got Cam to believe in it, and now Cam is the only one trying to protect it. The only one. And the ideas that Cam wrote down on her paper were about, how do we get back to the community that Donna sold to me to begin with, that Donna believed in so much. Cam's ideas are protecting Donna's vision. And so I look back at Frack and Toaster Lovers, the comment here, and I think 208 was when Cam finally said, you're right, and you've been right. This is a good idea. This is the idea. And we have something special, and I want to help you make more of it. And this is an extension of that in this episode. She's trying to protect Donna's idea, while acknowledging that transactions are important and need to happen, and there's a marketplace idea that's good too. If Donna really sat with that for a second, maybe she would feel proud, but Cam isn't communicating that part, doesn't maybe know how to, or hasn't processed it herself. Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, let's hear from Amelia Flowers. Amelia had a few different things about 304 that I wanted to bring in here. I've always wondered why Donna did what she did, the lie about Craig and Doug, and Diane saying she couldn't let them go. Up until this episode, Donna's always been on Cam's side. What was her motivation to lie? And a lie that could easily be found out. I wonder if Donna, in seeing Diane and wanting to be more like her, feels like she's always playing second fiddle to Cam, that they aren't a true partnership, despite all the work Donna has done getting in Gordon to invest, making the move to California. But Cam will always play the she started the company card. I'm hypothesizing, but perhaps Donna wanting to take some power back and make Cam have to compromise for once and learn to work with others as Donna has had to. Yeah, it was an easily traceable lie that Donna made. Very easy to find out, and one that could easily break trust with Cam. And Donna made that choice anyway. Is that the point of no return for these two, or do we just go all the way back to, this episode as the point of no return? Or is it just when the moment Cam started to use "this is my company" with Donna? What was the point of no return for Donna and Cam here? But why did Donna lie? I really do think the idea of Cam continuing to throw the "I started this company, it's my company" bit, I think that has had a big impact on Donna. I think that meeting Diane has, going to Diane's house and experiencing Diane's life and spending time with her kid and her friends and putting on Diane's robe and getting in her tub and sitting on the grass. I think that maybe she's also living a little bit of the "what would Diane do" sort of model. And maybe she thinks Diane would respect the situation more if Mutiny could work with Craig and Doug. And so Donna's making it happen regardless and choosing not to explain that to Cam. I wonder how impossible it would be for them to work through these things if they just had open and honest conversations with each other about it. Do they actually need to dance around each other as much as they do? I don't know. Maybe Donna could have been more upfront about it. But she's tried that in the past with other things. But look, Cameron eventually came around on Community. I don't know. Donna has made it work with Cam before. It's tricky. Amelia Flowers also says, I wonder if Joe had any idea just how well his little comments worked on Diane and Buzz. The comments at the party with the fish, the people tank, the fish tank, the pool with the windows in it. I wonder if Joe had any idea just how well his little comments worked on Diane and Buzz. He was definitely doing his utmost to belittle both, with the inference that Diane's company was boutique, but his words adding weight to the conclusion that Diane had come to regarding Cam after walking into the project meeting. And that's why she went to Donna. There must have been a fair few phone calls or maybe meetings at Diane's office. I just caught the exchange between Donna and Buzz regarding the "are you expecting her this time" at the office. I guess before that, I just assumed Diane was over there a lot. But now that I think back, maybe she hadn't been. I mean, she wasn't involved in any of the meetings in season 3 until this episode. And I never picked up that Boz was pulling away from anything relationship-wise with Diane at the party and then trying to rein himself in at Laser Quest. I'd put both down to, number one, Boz being pissed at Joe for implying the southernness was an act, and was talking and was taking it out on Diane. And two, Boz still being pissed that the coders had not taken him seriously with the pranking, but I prefer this version. Some really cool stuff here that I think this is the time to go back to Amelia's very smart comments. Diane and Boz, there was some weirdness. So obviously, this was sort of Diane inviting Boz to that party. She had met Boz at swap meet for that very first time, that one time we saw the swap meet office. And then she comes in and she wants to invite Boz to this party that Amelia is talking about instead of Donna. Donna thought she was going to get the invite. Diane says, I'd like to invite Boz to that fundraiser. Boz goes, he holds court, and Diane's flirting with him so hard. But then we get this conversation with, and I think he's flirting back because I think they had energy even from when they met at swap meet. I think what derails things a bit is Joe interacting with these two. And the question is why, as Amelia presents here. And first of all, what did Joe really say? Well, first of all, Joe talks to Diane and he meets Diane and he says something about Cam that I think may be rearing its head in this very interaction we just saw in this episode, where he's like, oh, so you're working with Cameron Howe and she's letting somebody invest in her company. That shows real growth for Cam. She must be in a good place. It's throws a lot of shade at Cam. And you're saying that to somebody who's investing in her company. And the assumption is that Diane has probably done a fair amount of research on Cam and Donna and Boz and all of the key players. But Joe saying something like that throws shade on Cam. And we've seen that Diane has had sort of more of a growing bond with Donna. Also, we see that because Donna has actually accepted the invite to go to Diane's house. So we've seen her interact in Diane's home space and with her kids. So that probably makes us feel an even stronger bond there. We've seen Donna and Diane perhaps have more meetings with each other than Cam has had with Diane. But you get a conversation like this with Joe, and it's like, Cam might be, so Cam is in a better place that she can work with other people. And Diane is seeing a lot of evidence that Cam struggles to work with other people. So maybe Joe's assessment is starting to ring a little truer as the episodes go on. As far as Boz, Boz, I think, was flirting back a bit with Diane until after he's talking with Joe. And Joe, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you're really the life of the party here. You're holding, Joe makes a comment to Boz that maybe makes it feel like his bear story is an act. And then after that point, Boz is no longer willing to tell the bear story. It's not a bear, it's my ex-wife. And he cools off with Diane a bit. But is it because of what Joe said? Or I'm going to posit a new theory here. Is it because of what Boz reveals here? As he starts getting more playful with Diane, he starts realizing he's going to have to share this information with her about how he was in prison, about his backstory from Texas and his reputation. Is it that it's something Joe said, or is it that the closer he gets to Diane, the closer he gets to having to have this reveal with her that could lead to a rejection? So maybe that's what cools it off. And now that he's had this conversation with Diane at her doorstep and she's like, give me the damn flowers and stop making such a big deal out of this. Maybe all of that has been lifted from him and he can just proceed. Amelia has one other comment to make about a different subject, which is Joe, Ken, and packet switching guy meeting. It's an uncomfortable watch, but I'm so happy that Joe said what he did. Okay, Sandy in a wetsuit or a bikini. Good for Joe finally getting some payback, even if it does alienate a company that funds so much of Macmillan Utilities business. I'd like to know more about Ken. The actor is so good at making us dislike him, but he is the one trying to keep Macmillan Utilities successful. The actor is Matthew Lillard. He's so good. I know him best from Scream. He's been in a lot of things. He is so interesting in this role as Ken. And I love that you raised this here, Amelia, because the meeting about ultimately that guy's son had been at Joe's party. He had gotten into some trouble, and the guy came to blame Joe. And Ken set up that meeting to repair the situation with basically their biggest client. That guy was their biggest client. And he needed to make whatever reparations needed to be made there so that they could save that business. And Joe is on board with that to a point, but this guy is so gross for so much of the conversation. And then he makes so many homophobic comments, which directly impact how Joe sees him. And so that's beyond the pale for Joe. And Joe does the whole hand squeeze thing, the way too firm handshake, the pat on the shoulder, and he sends the guy packing. And Ken has to run after him. He's probably not going to get that business back. Joe wouldn't want to work with him if he did. So I look at it and I think of this guy, Ken, and I think, how bad is he? We saw him doing drugs with a woman at a party. Am I going to say he's a bad guy because of that? No. What have we learned about him that's actually so bad? Maybe we're inclined not to like him, but when I really look at everything from his position, Joe is a risk. A company with Joe McMillan at the helm is a risk. Does he want to protect the company, or does he want to take over the company when Joe screws it up like he inevitably is going to do? Either way, he still is protecting the company to a point, because I think all of the decisions that he's making are trying to save Joe from himself or save the company from Joe. And if you're a fan of Joe and you want the best for Joe, that may not seem the best, but then you also know that he's got a track record of quite literally putting things up in flames behind him or flooding them behind him. So Ken's not wrong. He has been looking for the moment when Joe's going to burn the ground behind him and trying to prevent it or save it. And he's been following Joe's every movement and watching very closely. So can I blame him for the stuff he does in this episode? No. Can I blame him for what he was doing in the conversation with the packet switching guy? Not really, because he was entertaining the guy, and he had to meet him at his sort of base level to do that. But he also was trying to save their biggest client. I don't know. I have so many questions about Ken. I think Ken's really interesting. And I guess I wonder, does he have designs to take over for Joe when all's said and done? What's his actual role? Or is he just there to be the savior to the company and protect the company at all costs? So there's that. But it's an interesting character, Amelia, and I'm glad that you kind of let me dive into that a little bit more. Thank you. Okay, we've got a comment from Present Hour 24 from 304. That moment with Ryan sharing his ideas is very funny. This might not have been 304. This must have been 301. That moment with Ryan sharing his ideas is very funny. I've watched that scene a few times now, and it's always awkward to watch Ryan being so serious with that marker. Remember when he's presenting his ideas to Cam and Donna? I felt the same angry energy, and it's so hilarious that it turns into a comedy. I think Cam and Donna being annoyed is what makes it so funny.
Do you think Ryan was so passionate about his idea that he would not accept no for an answer? I actually don't. I think Ryan is very passionate, but I think that Ryan went into that meeting with a stack of ideas, and that was idea number one of the meetings, of the ideas he went into with that meeting. I think this is probably not the first time he's presented ideas to Cam and or Donna. I think they've had enough of his ideas. I think that he came into that meeting with like half a dozen ideas and he was equally passionate about all of them. And all of them probably came from a place that these were things that more captivated his interest or better utilized his particular skill sets. I think in the beginning of the series or the beginning of the season, he felt that he was being underutilized at Mutiny. He felt like he was smarter than everybody in the room and he had so much potential and so much capability. And he saw all kinds of things he could do better. And he had ideas about how he'd get it done. And he was presenting them to them. And I think if they had taken any one of those ideas, he would have been happy with it. I think he would have taken no for an answer for 5 out of 6 of the ideas. And if they just said yes to one of them, he could have been fulfilled at Mutiny. But they didn't. And maybe he never had the right ideas. I mean, I think one of the things that we've seen with Joe is that the idea that Joe ended up running with that came from Ryan's research. Joe recognized that it was the thing. Gordon recognized by just looking at the map that it was the thing. And Ryan, with all of the information and all the research, was like, Joe, this isn't it. Joe was like, I think it is. Ryan's instincts about what is truly the idea or what's truly marketable are not very well honed. But he doesn't necessarily need that. Once Ryan felt like he was being truly brought in, once he felt like somebody was really hearing him, valuing his very specific types of contributions he could make, he was willing to be loyal to that person forever. And that was Joe. So I think we've seen it all the way to this point where he does something illegal because he believes so much in Joe that he wants to protect Joe's honor at the risk of his own. That's how far Ryan is willing to go for somebody who goes that far out on a limb to cultivate Ryan. It's not, I don't know if it's the idea that Ryan got on board with Joe thinking that this was the idea. And yeah, I think, but what we know about it, present hour 24, we know about it from that episode. We don't have any of the information that we have by now. So now we've seen it play out a bit and we've seen a little bit more about what Ryan's strengths and weaknesses are. Okay, here we are. I know this is a loaded feedback section, but you've been waiting for it, folks. It's feedback from Evan the Stray. First of all, a little bit about 305. I believe Cam thought that Boz would stop and he didn't. Remember Yerba Buena? They have the fight in the car. Cam gets out, starts walking, and Boz drives past her, doesn't stop to let her back in. I believe Cam thought that Boz would stop and he didn't because he's always been dependably resilient in the past through her angry behavior, though not necessarily directed at him in such a hurtful way previously. She pushed hard enough that she achieved escape velocity with him. She's realizing that if she pushes hard enough, people whom she loved may not return. Cam doesn't get on the plane back to San Francisco. Obviously, her relationship with Boz is completely different, but I can't help but notice the inverted symmetry between that and Tom not getting on her plane to San Francisco 6 episodes ago. Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's one that we, in this episode, are going to see the ramifications of that. It's not just about tough love that makes Boz not stop the car and just keep driving past her. It's also about he was really hurt. And it's not just a fight. And it's not just Cam not telling him that she got married. It's that he sees himself as a father-like figure to her, or at least he sees her as a daughter. And for her to have these moments where she bristles against that or doesn't accept him in that way feels like a deep rejection. And so that's where those fights are coming from for him. And I think the pain that he is feeling in this episode, it made me cry while I was talking about it. So I just, and then when she sees that pain in him, it makes her really upset. Those two. Okay. Let's talk about 307 before I make myself upset again. So Evan says, aside from the possible fern symbolism of family, hope, and new beginnings being sidelined, Cam's and Tom's minor wrinkle with crossing the threshold and exchanging surnames, playful as it may seem on the surface, suggests a clash of traditional versus progressive cultures. Will one, both, or neither bend? Great question. It's presented as cute here, but I too feel like there's something underneath that that's a deeper issue. I don't know if it'll be cute forever. Joe's direction to Ryan to halt communications with each other until corporate legal proceedings have finished results in a look from Ryan like he's emotionally processing it as if Joe is saying he wants to see other people. I know. Joe saying that, there was such a level of disappointment from Ryan, but like disappointment in Joe in a way that I've never seen before from Ryan. Ryan is given more than one thing to make him question Joe in this episode, from Joe himself, from Ken, and from his conversation with Gordon. And in the end, Ryan is able to assess it and say, no, what I think what I was seeing with Joe was always true. But boy, in this scene, he has a lot to think about, doesn't he? Tom cites encountering Cam's expression, the little girl face. Yeah. I saw the look on Cam's face when I opened the door again, when she came back to my place before I was going to go bowling. Like, I saw that look on her face. Couldn't believe it. It was just like, I've never seen a look on her face like that before. Yeah. Maybe he has. I think of the look on her face when she trashed her room. And maybe that was a different look, but she trashed her room and Tom climbed in through the window last season and he kind of came over and gave her a hug because she was so vulnerable. I wonder what this look was. Cam's and Tom's mutual matrimonial engagement escalation apparently resulted in the nuptials engagement threshold being reached, a joint effort. It actually feels like a pretty common and reasonable way to approach a union versus a surprise. There is something about it that feels very partnership based, like the way they built Extract and Defend. Oh, this idea, then this idea, then this idea, then this idea. And inherently, I like that about their relationship, that they're able to sort of, Kim's partnership abilities are very weak in most other areas, but her ability to come to some sort of an agreement with Tom is stronger than just about anybody else that we see in the show. I don't know, like the retelling of the story and what they were and weren't comfortable to say. I'm reading a lot into that, and I think there's a red flag there. But I do think that Cam's ability to find a partnership with Tom, professionally or personally, surpasses that of any other relationship we've seen. Maybe we're starting to see that with Gordon in their friendship too. But it is worth noting. Diane called John Bosworth Boz and not John. Interesting. However, she's a little cold and standoffish in the moment, so maybe she's resorting to the colloquialism of his public brand to show detachment. Okay, so is that, I'm thinking that you're referring to when she answers the door, she does say Boz. Oh. She goes instead of doing her like personal touch, she goes back to the public naming. I think that's a really interesting point. I like this, Evan. Evan the Stray. Evan the Stray, everybody. It's good stuff. Okay. A fresh start for Donna and Cam in the can? Or does this symbolize the relationship is already in the crapper, despite the encouraging discussion? It seems from a production standpoint, the discussion could have been just as easily in a garden atrium of a restaurant rather than a ladies' room. Huh. I wonder if that was a practical choice just in terms of shooting locations and what was available to them. It feels like there must have been at a location, like at a restaurant, because we've seen restaurant locations before, but they're never the same. I'm trying to think, like we saw a dinner with Sarah and Jacob and Joe in season 2. We saw the horrific dinner between Cam and Donna with the guys who thought they were trying to hook up with them at another table in season 3. We've seen a dinner with the folks from Japan. Was that with Gordon and Joe in season 1? We've seen a bunch of restaurant scenes, but I don't feel like those all, I'm trying to remember how they looked, and I don't necessarily feel like they all looked the same, but maybe they used like the same property, because we don't see it often enough where you build a set around it. So maybe they just had a bathroom and that was the other location that felt like the right place for filming for this. So it could be that practical reasons really factor into this. I'm not sure, but there's symbolism there as well, because boy, Donna and Cameron are on the same page for a minute and a half over how many episodes so far. Boy, that didn't last long at all, did it? Gordon has a newly found swagger and business competency we've not really seen before. There were a couple glimpses and a somewhat implied state of professional growth as he was leaving Cardiff Electric in his TV interview. However, current Gordon feels significantly more adept. I would say that Gordon in that TV interview was not super strong. I would say he was a spokesperson, but I did not feel that he was comfortable in that role. And he even had Donna there for support behind the camera. I think this, for me, the only time I feel like I've seen Gordon look this confident and sure of himself was 108, when he got the band back together to convince everybody to go to Comdex. So like this, but that Gordon even, it was coming from like an adrenaline place. And here I feel like he's sort of, it's in his body now. He's like, he's sitting with this. He's more grounded in that place. There's a lot of growth here. I agree. Mustaches feel gross to me in this episode. Sure. I hear you, Evan the Stray. Mustaches often do not work the way people think they do. Cam and Tom are still working on the surname push and pull, and still in a playful manner, though I suspect that will grow old quickly. Me too. Maybe not even just directly for the surname piece, but I think Kim just constantly is saying these things like, I bought the house. You're unemployed. Like, it's not that cute. Oh, Arky, so world renowned for his hugging prowess, his reputation precedes him, so others can prepare their hearts and minds for the epic embrace to be. I like that they gave us this detail. They gave us little details with a lot of the coders that felt sweet in this episode. The hugging thing, the smashing of the cake in Bodhi's face. I love it. Gordon is very standoffish at the wedding celebration. Should we call it a reception? He appears very troubled at what I'm inferring is an assessment of Donna being two-faced. However, I think Donna is actually sufficiently compartmentalized, such that she is able to be both genuinely happy for Cameron and Tom and celebrate, yet also be ready to fight for the accelerated IPO in full force against Cameron's wishes. It kind of feels like a combination of mothering, like she thinks she knows what's better for Cam than Cam does, which I suppose is possible. But anyway, and also ageism. Regardless, it feels controlling. Maybe in a pure business sense, that's not so wrong or even wrong at all times, but they're so personally connected. It's like the third rail. As I was reading what you wrote, Evan, I keep thinking about Donna's mom. I think that Donna took a lot of information away from watching her mom operate. I think her mom, from what we've seen of her mom, is very, can I make you some dinner? And she will slit your throat behind your back. There could be 4 people at the table and she could hate one of them and she will still smile through dinner. I feel like Donna learned from that. I think it's compartmentalization to a degree. I think that there's business and there's personal, and sometimes there's putting a thing on a shelf because you want to celebrate Cam's marriage. But in the same episode, she says, let's see if your marriage lasts a year. So that is something she really thinks about Cam and Tom. And that's been underneath everything that she has said to Cam for the entire episode. So I don't know if we want to call that compartmentalization or just flat out faking it. I think I want to call it flat out faking it. And I think that's weird for Cam because faking it does not come naturally to Cam. It's a skill she's been having to learn professionally. And she's been using it at times. And in a way, I think she's using that in this episode, but she's not as good at it as Donna. And Donna is not willing to go there anymore in this episode. Gordon reveals Donna's mutiny at mutiny to Cam. As much as it feels like he's trying to play both sides, or should I say have his cake and eat it too, he's providing Cameron the opportunity to seek out Boz, making things right with him and possibly winning his vote. I feel like Gordon is going to have hell to pay for this at home, though he may be okay with this following his Independence Day weekend staycation with Donna. Is he methodically planning on blowing up his marriage, or is he just okay with risking it if that's the outcome from going behind Donna's back to tell Cam about the IPO situation? You see, the thing with Gordon here, it's a really good question. I think that if I were looking at this from Donna's perspective, I'd feel this was a betrayal from Gordon, and maybe it is a betrayal from Gordon. But do I think he's trying to have his cake and eat it too? I do not. I think that Gordon would not be able to live with himself morally if he didn't give Cam a heads up about this. I think he wouldn't be able to live with himself morally. So I think he has no choice but to find a way to reveal this to Cam. I think he knows that he's not going to be able to vote with Cam, but he has to do something for her because he can't live with himself if he doesn't. I think that goes way beyond. It's not about betraying Donna for him, I don't think. I think it's about saying, what can I live with myself for? I think he's seen I think he's been unhappy most of season 3. I think that we saw him unhappy 301. He does not look content at Mutiny. And if anything, the only time I feel like he was content at Mutiny was when he got the position to oversee the coders. Because he got some authority in the room, and that was something that he created. We saw him play laser tag with them. He's owning that role. But I don't think he's been happy with Mutiny. And I think that, yeah, that whole camp thing with Donna, like Donna and Gordon had an opportunity to have a vacation with each other and to finally just have a moment to relax with each other. And it started out so well, and it went so horribly wrong, and it made Gordon question Donna completely. So I think Gordon has some stuff that they put a Band-Aid on their relationship going into season 3 at the end of season 2. I think the Band-Aid's coming off a little bit. And I think that if Gordon does not say something to Cam, I don't think he could deal with that. So I think he's got no choice but to do something. And if that's a betrayal to Donna, so be it, but she's put him in this position. So look, is it a betrayal? Yeah. Is it a betrayal he needs to make? Maybe. Maybe things are not going right with Donna and he needs to do something. Like, this is Gordon's life. This is Donna's life. They have to figure out how they want to live it. And is is them just making all these sacrifices for each other going to work forever? Like, I think Gordon had to make a choice that was honest to himself. So I applaud him for the choice that he made. I think there will be hell to pay for it. But is that hell worse than the hell he would have felt internally if he said nothing to Cam? I think he's decided no. So there's that. Okay, Boz and Cam's one-on-one scene in the office is so touching. Boz clearly articulates that he still sees and loves her as a daughter, despite her not seeing him as a father figure, and maybe that's the most beautiful form of parental love. It perseveres irrespective to the emotional state of the progeny. Boz's tone and timbre are uniquely warm and soft in this scene, and it's really a differentiator from prior one-on-one scenes with Cameron. It really effectively calms her. And now it makes me wonder, is that manipulation or helping put her at ease, or even both? I believe it's coming from a place of love. So I'm going to say it's putting her at ease. Oh, I don't see it as manipulation at all. That scene, talking about that scene just brought me to tears on this podcast. I think she approaches him saying, I know things are horrible and I still need your help, please. And he says, here's the thing I'm putting on a shelf for this conversation. This is why I'm feeling hurt. He helps her with the thing. She takes it back off the shelf and she says, Boz, I got married. And she says it in a way that feels like, I'm going to give you this moment. I know it's bittersweet. It should have come earlier, but let's still have this moment that you wish you would have had. I think I see nothing but love in that scene from both sides. I think he is really hurt and she's deeply upset that she hurt him and wants to undo that somehow. Those two, it's such a unique scene. They have some great scenes, but damn it, that's a good one. Okay, Cameron shows Boz her wedding ring in a socially acceptable and typical fashion. Yay! It happened, folks. Okay. The momentum in the wedding party meeting scene builds so incrementally. It's impressive to watch. Normally, I don't think I generally like seeing Halt's main characters being so confrontational, but in this scene right now, it feels delicious. Be careful what you ask for, Cameron. You just might get it. But maybe it was an ultimatum she wanted to make because she knew she couldn't work in that environment after that meeting's eruption. Boz's vote to go IPO really is the final blow for Cam. She appears devastated. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens between Cam and Boz from here. Based on the conversation they just had before this meeting. But this scene, I think it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, there are consequences to the confrontation. There are consequences to the choices the characters are making here, but there are also consequences to not having these conversations and just living out their lives with the compromises they're not willing to make. And at a certain point, is a compromise more than a compromise you want to make? And if it is, then you have to make these choices. You have to put these ultimatums down. I think this is a horrible outcome for Cam. But was she willing to live with a compromise? It would seem she was not. And it would seem Donna was not. So I don't know what the other path was for them here. I do think that there was all this potential middle ground, but it was compromise. And I don't know if what we've seen from them, how much more of that they can take long term. They need a breather. Like, that's it. And the breather is coming in the form of blowing up this relationship completely. Maybe there was a point earlier where this thing could have been massaged a little bit more, but they missed it. Had the wedding party meeting not been such a raging cacophony of clashing egos, I wonder if Gordon would have actually not offered Joe to run NSFNet with him. But he sees how calm, conciliatory, and somewhat resignedly positive Joe is in the moment. I think he welcomes that chill in his life now. And Joe's laugh after Gordon said, even better, responding to the silent partner recommendation from Joe, really felt good and satisfying, but we needed an upbeat note, especially after that last boardroom gnashing of teeth. I don't know that Gordon could or would have offered this partnership to Joe had he not just seen what happened with Donna and Cam. I think both because Donna and Cam, I mean, just seeing the display of that, seeing like here's what happens when you steal an idea, and here's the bitterness that can accrue from this, and here's what happens when you take somebody's company. He's seen all that play out, and he doesn't want to keep perpetuating this cycle that they've all had with each other. And he has a real opportunity to have a genuine partnership with Joe here. And he has a playbook for what it looks like when that doesn't go right. And, he's making a different choice. I think that he needed to see everything that he saw in this episode in order to make this choice with Joe. And that was an earthquake, folks. But here we are, still recording. So there's that. It was just one shake. That's what I've been experiencing here in California, like one shake. I'm like, is that? Yeah, it was. You saw it here. Okay. So I would say, like, he's seen it go wrong in all different kinds of ways. And also, something else to consider is I think Gordon's kind of looking at a circle of people. He's got this great partnership with Cam, this great friendship with Cam, I should say. But what's going to happen to that now? Gordon is sick. Gordon has people in his life that he values, and one of them is what part of his world is Cam going to be right now? Does he want Joe walking out of it too, when Joe could be a part of his world? Does, these people are walking away. Things are getting weird with Mutiny. Things are probably really weird with his relationship with Donna right now. Maybe he could use a friend. And Gordon being willing to swallow his pride right now might be the very thing he needs to bring Joe back into his circle in a positive and healthy way. So I think I'm just so, I just love the choices Gordon's made for himself in this episode, even though I think there's going to be fallout for him. I don't see how there couldn't be, but he's doing the best he can. Okay. Had Ryan not been so impulsive with releasing the Macmillan utility code and defending Joe's honor, then Joe appeared he would have been excited to bring him back to the NSFNet project. That key found its way back into Joe's pocket quite quickly. Ryan felt very imbalanced and even a skosh scary. Get some sleep, Ryan. You're missing things. I like the quote from earlier. Yeah. Ryan just did that to himself. Ryan's instincts are terrible. Ryan's instincts are really, really bad. He's got a lot of talent and a lot of know-how, and he needs somebody to do the decision-making for him. I'm sorry, Ryan. Joe, like a puppy dog, you lose sight of them for 1 second and you don't know what they're going to get into. Joe took his eyes off Ryan for a second, and he was trying not to. He was calling Ryan, and Ryan unplugged his phone. Joe, he was not reachable. So I don't know. Joe took his eyes off Ryan for a second, and Ryan made bad choices. And it's not the first time that's probably happened for Ryan. Okay. Big team quote match. Okay, that's the theme of the quotes this time. Player 10. We decided that's what killed things last time. So, mixing a relationship with work. Quote from Tom, the Clarks react. I like that one. Okay, this is one we have in common here from Boz, player number 9. Have you heard of the Midas touch? Well, I got the opposite of that. Feeling George Costanza vibes here, Evan writes. Player number 8, a quote from Gordon. Me either, but it's nice to know we can still surprise ourselves. Joe cracks a tiny right cheeked grin here. I think he's genuinely happy for Gordon not being so mousy or a little bunny rabbit, as Nathan Cardiff had put it. A quote from Joe from player 7. You wrote the code, agreed, but I offered you partnership twice and you turned me down twice. I have to think that you're not so myopic that you can't see that I might be entitled to a little return for turning it into what I turned it into. Agreed. He makes an excellent point. Player 6, quote from Gordon. Donna, if you pull this move, I guarantee you shall see it as an act of war and you will cross a line that you cannot uncross. So don't kid yourself. Truth. A lot of truth from people in this episode. Quote from Cam, player 5. Oh, you mean that bullshit little party you threw to distract me from getting stabbed in the back? Truth. Also from Cam, player 4. Diane, it's mostly your thoughts coming out of her mouth, so I can't imagine what you have to add to this discussion. I don't know if that ended up being true, to be honest, but it was what Cam felt. A quote from Gordon, player 3. 49%, come run it with me. Yeah. It's the partnership we all want to see, I'm sure. Long quote from Boz, player 2. First off, don't make this thing with Donna any bigger than it is. You two have a difference of opinion, that's all. The only reason I'm here in the first place is because of you. I love you and I owe you, but it's not just your company, not anymore. God, you got a special kind of talent, sweetheart, but when you march to the beat of your own drum, you risk losing the band. Lay out your vision, find a way to work with her. You two need each other. Yeah. The whole scene is making me so sad. Okay. The quote of the episode from Donna, player 1. You want it, you got it, but I will not sit by and watch this company die because it's being held hostage by a petulant child. If we don't move forward with the IPO, then you can steer this ship into the rocks yourself because I'm out of here. Evan writes, Donna's snarling. I'm digging the passion. Not saying it's righteous indignation. It's just impressive from Donna. Yeah, she's had about enough of being told she doesn't run this company anymore. Yeah, it's so good. I wanted to reflect on the moment that there was an earthquake in the the end of my podcast about this episode, because this feels like if not happening during the actual earthquake episode, this feels like the world got rocked in Halt and Catch Fire. And I don't know if I want to say can't wait to see the fallout in the next episode, but I'm here to tell you next episode is big. So if you haven't seen it before, just brace yourself, get ready, buckle up, get your comment hands ready. This show is so good, guys. I can't wait. So next time we're going to talk about season 3, episode 8. And in the meantime, go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye, everyone.